I still remember the first time I heard her voice. It was late. The kind of late where the whole room feels hollow and thin, like the walls are stretched too tight. The night shift at the 911 center has that effect on you. The buzzing of the monitors, the occasional crackle of the radio, and the silence that sits heavy in between. It wears on you. Most nights are just noise, drunk drivers, domestic disputes, the usual storms of human messiness. But that night I picked up a call that never left me. "Wani, what's your emergency?" I asked, my voice steady, the way they trained us to be. For a moment I didn't hear anything. Just faint static, and then a little girl's voice. Quiet, trembling. My mom's acting weird. At first I thought I misheard. "Sweetheart, can you tell me your name?" There was a pause. I could hear her breathing, quick and shallow, like she was holding the phone with both hands. "Emily," she whispered. "Okay, Emily. How old are you?" 8. Her voice was so small it barely filled my headset. I leaned closer to the console, lowering my tone like I was crouching down to her level. "All right, Emily. Can you tell me what's wrong with your mom?" That pause again. Only this time it stretched. I thought maybe the line had gone dead until she spoke again. She won't stop smiling. I frowned, scribbling notes out of habit. "She's smiling?" "Yes." Her voice cracked on the word. "She's just standing in the kitchen, smiling." I shifted in my chair, feeling the weight of those words settle on me. Calls from kids are always tricky. Sometimes they exaggerate. Sometimes they don't understand what they're seeing. But something in Emily's voice, it didn't sound like a game. It sounded like fear. "Emily, is your mom saying anything to you?" "No, she just keeps looking at me, like she's waiting for me to do something." I felt my skin prickle. "Where are you right now, Emily?" "I'm in the living room." "Okay, good. Stay where you are. Can you tell me if anyone else is in the house with you?" "No, it's just me and her." My pen hovered above the paper. Alone with her mom. I marked the time, tapped my keyboard, and began tracing the call's location. "Emily, can you describe what your mom is doing right now?" There was a sound like the phone shifting. I imagined her peeking around a corner. She's still standing there. Her smile is too big. It doesn't look right. Her words shivered into my ear. Too big. My training kicked in. I kept my voice calm, steady. "Okay, Emily. I'm sending help to your house right now. You're doing really good just talking to me. Can you tell me your address?" But she hesitated. I heard her swallow. "She doesn't like it when I tell people things," she whispered. I felt something tighten in my chest. "Emily, it's very important. I need to know where you are so I can send the police to help you. Can you tell me?" She went silent. I could hear faint creaks, like the sound of footsteps on old floorboards. I thought maybe she was moving. Then she whispered again. "She's walking now." I closed my eyes for a moment, gripping my pen. "Emily, listen carefully. Stay very quiet. Don't let her see you on the phone, okay?" I pulled the address up on my screen as her shaky little voice began to recite it, house number by house number. I logged it, sent the dispatch code. Units were already rolling out, but her breathing quickened. I could hear it plainly. She's looking for me. My own pulse started to climb. Even through years of hearing panicked voices, something about hers clawed straight into me. "Emily, it's okay. Just stay where you are. Help is on the way. Can you hide somewhere safe?" Another pause. Then the faint sound of hinges creaking. "I'm under the table. Good girl," I whispered. "That's very good. You're safe. Just keep talking to me until the officers get there." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The line hummed with soft static. Her little breaths, the faint ticking of my own wall clock. And then, her smile is bigger now. The words barely made it out of her. I felt cold spread down my arms. "Emily, can you describe what you see?" She took a shaky breath. Her mouth, it's too wide. It goes up to her ears. I froze. My training told me it was just a child's imagination. But my instincts told me something else. "She's still looking for me," Emily whispered again. And then, in the background, faint but clear, I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate wooden creaks echoing through the line. I swallowed hard. "Emily, don't move. Stay quiet. The police are coming, all right? Just a few more minutes." But she didn't answer this time. Just her breath, quick and sharp. "Emily?" I whispered. Then I heard it. Not her voice. Another one. A woman's voice. Low. Drawn out. too calm. Who are you talking to, Emily? The line cracked with silence. My mouth went dry. Emily, don't answer her, I whispered quickly. Stay with me. Just stay with me. But I never heard Emily again, only the faint scrape of the phone moving, and then the line went dead. I sat there, staring at the dark screen, headset pressed to my ear like maybe I'd catch one more breath, one more whisper. But there was nothing. The units I sent arrived minutes later. They reported back, lights off, house quiet. Door ajar, but no one inside. No trace of Emily. No sign of her mother. Just an empty living room and a phone lying on the floor beneath a table. And that was it. The log shows a disconnected call. An address, nothing more. But I still hear her voice. Even now, on nights when the center is quiet, I swear I hear it crackle back through the static. She won't stop smiling. People think working as a 911 operator means you get used to strange calls. And in a way you do. You learn to keep your voice steady when someone is screaming in your ear. You learn how to stay calm while the world is falling apart on the other end of the line. But some calls don't leave you. I've handled drunks threatening to kill their neighbors, panicked parents whose kids aren't breathing, even people whispering that someone is breaking into their home while I sat helplessly miles away. Each call leaves a little mark. But there's one that carved itself into me. It came on a night shift, just past 2 in the morning. The center was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence where even the hum of the fluorescent lights feels loud. My coffee had gone cold on the desk, and I was half drifting when the phone rang. I slipped on the headset, pressed the blinking light, and spoke the line I'd said 1,000 times before. What's your emergency? At first I didn't hear anything, just soft static, like the caller had the phone pressed against fabric. Then, a voice. It was a child, a little girl. My mom's acting weird. The words were so faint I almost thought I imagined them. My hand froze over my notepad. Sweetheart, I said gently, can you tell me your name? Silence. I could hear her breathing, shaky and uneven, like she was scared to even be speaking at all. Then, finally, Emily. Her voice was so small I had to lean in just to catch it. Okay, Emily, that's good. How old are you? 8 years old. Alone, calling 911. My stomach tightened. I softened my voice, lowering it like I was right there with her. All right, Emily. Can you tell me what's wrong with your mom? Another pause. Longer this time. I thought the line might have dropped, but then she whispered again. She won't stop smiling. I blinked at my screen, pen hovering. She's smiling? Yes. Her voice cracked like she was about to cry. She's just standing in the kitchen, smiling. A chill ran down my arms. I wrote it down anyway, the words looking strange on paper. Mother. Standing, smiling, unresponsive. Emily, has your mom said anything to you? No, she just keeps looking at me, like she's waiting for me to do something. I felt my throat go dry. I'd had calls about parents acting violent or parents passed out drunk, but this was different. Emily, where are you right now? In the living room. Good, stay right there, okay? You're doing such a good job. Can you tell me if anyone else is in the house with you? No, just me and her. I started typing in the system, tracing the call, dispatching units. But something about the way she was whispering made my chest tighten. Emily, I'm sending officers to help you, but I need you to tell me what your mom is doing right now. I heard a faint rustle, like she was shifting the phone, peeking around something. She's still standing there, but her smile looks wrong. Wrong how? It's too big, her little voice shook. It doesn't look like her face anymore. For a second, I didn't know what to say. Training told me to stay calm, keep her focused, but her words pressed against something deep in me. Okay, Emily, you're very brave. I need you to tell me your address so I can get help to you fast. Can you do that? Silence. Emily. When she spoke again, it was even softer. She doesn't like it when I tell people things. I swallowed hard. My fingers froze on the keyboard. Emily, it's very, very important. Can you whisper it to me? Just once? I heard the creak of floorboards through the line, slow and heavy. My heart began to pound. She's walking now, Emily whispered. My pulse kicked into my throat. Emily, listen. Stay very quiet, okay? Don't let her see you. Just whisper the address. I waited, listening to the uneven sound of her breath, the faint creak of wood. Then, shakily, she gave it to me. House number, street, everything. I sent it straight to dispatch. Units were already rolling. Perfect. You did so good, Emily. Officers are coming. Just a few minutes and they'll be there. Can you find a safe place to hide until then? A long pause. Then the creak of hinges, the scrape of wood. I'm under the table, she whispered. I nodded to myself even though she couldn't see me. That's very smart. You're safe there. Stay quiet, stay still, and keep talking to me. Her little breaths filled my ear. For a moment, the only sound in the whole center was her breathing and the hum of static. Then she whispered again. Her smile is bigger now. My chest tightened. What do you mean? She opened her mouth more. Too much. It goes all the way up to her ears. My pen slid from my fingers. My mouth went dry. This was a child. An 8-year-old. And her voice didn't sound like imagination. It sounded like horror. She's still looking for me, Emily whispered. And then, through the line, I heard it too. Footsteps, slow, heavy, creaking through the house. I lowered my voice, barely breathing. Emily, don't move. Don't say a word. The police are almost there. Her breath grew faster, sharper. I wanted to reach through the headset and hold her, tell her she wasn't alone. Emily? I whispered, but before she could answer, another voice filled the line, not hers. A woman's voice, calm, smooth, wrong. Who are you talking to, Emily? I froze. My whole body went cold. Emily, I whispered urgently, don't answer her. Stay with me. Please, stay with me. But the line shifted. I heard the scrape of the phone and then, nothing. Dead air. I sat there, staring at the dark screen of my console, listening for even a hint of her breath. But the line was gone. Units arrived minutes later. They reported the front door was ajar, the lights off. The house was silent. Inside, they found nothing. No Emily, no mother, just a phone lying on the floor under the table. That was it. The call log shows it lasted 6 minutes and 32 seconds. That's all the record shows, but I can still hear her voice. Sometimes, on nights when the center is quiet, when the static hisses just right, I swear I hear it again. She won't stop smiling, and every time I take off my headset, because I know if I listen too long, someone else might answer. After Emily's call, I couldn't shake it. Most of the time, when a call ends, you file the report and move on. You don't have the luxury of holding on to every story. If you did, the weight would crush you. But with her, it stuck. I'd close my eyes and hear her tiny voice again. She won't stop smiling. The strange thing was, I told myself it was just a child's imagination. Kids see shadows, they hear creaks, and their minds twisted into monsters. I told myself that over and over. But still, I didn't believe it. Not really, because deep down I knew she wasn't lying. And then came the second call. It was only 2 nights later. My shift was dragging. Another slow, heavy night. Around 3 a.m., the phone rang. I answered the same way I always do. Ma, what's your emergency? For a second, I thought there was no one there. Then, the static shifted, and I heard her. Hi. My heart stopped. It was her, Emily. Emily, is that you? I said quickly, leaning forward. She didn't answer right away. Just shallow, shaky breathing. Finally, she whispered, She's in the hallway now. I felt my stomach twist. Who's in the hallway, Emily? My mom. I pressed the headset tighter to my ear, my pulse quickening. She's just standing there, Emily whispered, in front of my bedroom door. I closed my eyes. The memory of her first call hit me all at once. Her mom standing in the kitchen smiling. Now she was in the hallway. Emily, is the door closed? Yes, okay, that's good. Stay very quiet. Can you lock the door? I don't know. Her voice shook. I pictured her tiny hands fumbling with an old doorknob. Emily, it's okay. Just stay where you are. Don't open the door. Can you tell me what she's doing right now? She's not moving. Those words pressed against me. Not moving. Just standing there. How do you know she's there, sweetheart? I asked gently. I can see her shadow. Under the door. She's just standing, smiling. My whole body went cold. Emily, listen to me. You're doing really good. I'm sending officers again. Can you whisper your address to me one more time just so I know? But she didn't answer right away. All I could hear was her trembling breath. Finally, she whispered, almost inaudible, "She doesn't like it when I tell. That same line." "The same fear, Emily, please. Just one more time. It's very important." The line rustled, and for a second I thought she hung up. Then I heard her voice, broken and small. "She's knocking now." My breath caught. "On your door?" "Yes." A faint sound came through the headset. A dull, hollow tap. 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 "Emily, stay calm. Don't move. Just stay quiet." But the knocking grew louder. Harder. I pressed my hand against my chest as if that would steady my racing heart. "Emily, listen. Police are on the way. Just a few more minutes. You're going to be okay." Her whisper came back, quivering. "She's still smiling." The words almost broke me. I tried to keep her talking, tried to keep her focused, but she grew quieter, retreating into whispers that I could barely make out. And then I heard it. Not her. Another voice. "A woman's right against the door. Emily, open up. It's okay. Just let me in." The voice was sweet, almost sing-song, but underneath it was something else. Something stretched too tight, like a recording that had been warped. Emily sobbed softly through the line. "That's not my mom's voice." I gripped the desk so hard my knuckles ached. "Emily, don't open it." "Stay where you are. Do not move." The knocking stopped. Silence pressed against the line. And then, slow, deliberate, the sound of fingers dragging down wood. Long, scraping strokes against her bedroom door. Emily whimpered. "Shh," I whispered, as if she could feel me there. "It's okay. Don't make a sound. They're almost there." I kept my eyes locked on the dispatch screen, watching the little dots move closer to her address. I tried to believe they'd get there in time. Then Emily's whisper returned. "She's kneeling now." "What do you mean?" Her voice cracked. I can see her eye. Through the crack under the door, I swear my blood turned to ice. "Emily, don't look." "Stay away from the door." But it was too late. She was crying softly, terrified breaths shaking through the headset. She's still smiling. She's not blinking. She's just looking at me. My hand shook as I held the receiver. I tried to keep my voice calm, steady, but I was breaking inside. "Emily, just stay back. Please stay back." "They're almost there." But then through the line, I heard something I will never forget. A voice. Low. Drawn out. Too close to the phone. "Who are you talking to, Emily?" Not the sing-song voice this time. This one was lower, darker. It sounded like it came from right behind the headset, too close to me. The line cracked. I pulled the headset off instinctively, but the voice still rang in my head. When I put it back on, the line was quiet. Too quiet. "Emily?" I whispered. Nothing. Just static. I stared at the screen until the officers arrived. They reported the same thing as before. House empty, lights off, door ajar. No sign of the girl. No sign of her mother. Only the faint smell of something sour in the air, and the sound of a door creaking upstairs when no one was up there. They searched every corner. They found nothing. And me? I sat there long after the line went dead, headset heavy against my ears, waiting for her voice to return. But all that was left was silence. And yet, sometimes in the late hours of my shift, when the building is still and the static hums just right, I swear I can hear it again. A faint, soft tapping, like someone knocking on wood. I thought the second call would be the last. I hoped it would be. Most operators never hear from the same child twice, let alone 3 times. You take the call, you send help, you file the report, and you pray it's enough. But Emily's voice kept finding its way back to me. Like the line wasn't tied to a phone anymore, but to me, it was a week later. Another dead quiet night, the kind where every second feels stretched thin. My head was heavy, my eyes burning from the screens. And then, the headset clicked. No ring, no flashing light, just a live line. I froze. Slowly, I lifted the mic closer. 911, what's your emergency? Silence. I almost thought I'd imagined it until I heard it. Soft, broken breathing. And then, that same little whisper. "It's Emily." My chest tightened. I sat up straighter, pen forgotten in my hand. "Emily," I whispered back. "It's okay. I'm here." "Where are you?" Her breath rattled through the headset, uneven. She's inside the room now. I closed my eyes. My whole body went cold. Emily, listen carefully. Are you hiding? Yes, she whispered. Her voice shook like she was pressing the phone against her lips. I'm in the closet. I can hear her. She's breathing. I gripped the desk so hard my knuckles ached. Okay, stay very quiet. Don't make a sound. You're safe as long as you stay hidden. Do you understand? She's looking for me. The words made my skin crawl. Emily, listen to me. I need you to tell me your address again right now. Just whisper it, please. There was a long silence. Then I heard the faint creak of floorboards, slow and heavy. Too slow to be human. She's standing outside the door. Emily breathed. My heart hammered in my chest. I typed furiously, pulling up the last address I had for her, sending units before she could even answer. Emily, stay with me. Stay hidden. Don't open the door. Her little breaths quickened. She's knocking again. As if on cue, I heard it. Soft, deliberate taps bleeding through the line. Tap, tap, tap. I bit my lip, trying to keep my voice calm. Emily, don't say anything. Don't move. Just stay there, but then the knocking stopped, and another sound replaced it. Breathing. Not Emily's. Low, steady, wet. Right against the receiver. I froze. My stomach dropped. It went on for several seconds, dragging into the line, filling my headset. I thought for a moment maybe Emily had passed the phone over, but no. I could still hear her, trembling, whispering through it. Do you hear it? That's her. Her whisper broke into quiet sobs. I wanted to scream for her to run, to break the rules and just get out, but all I could do was sit there, gripping the headset like a lifeline. Emily, listen to me. Help is on the way. Just a few more minutes. The breathing grew louder, closer. The static warped around it. Then a voice, soft, drawn out. Too low. She's not coming. I stiffened. Who said that, Emily? Nothing. She's not coming, the voice repeated. I yanked the headset off, staring at it like it had burned me. My breath came heavy, sweat cold on my back. But I forced myself to put it back on. The line was still live. This time I heard Emily again, broken and small. She opened the door. The words came out as a whimper. Emily, stay hidden. Don't move, just... But her whisper cut through mine, trembling, desperate. She's crawling. I swallowed hard, my stomach twisting. Emily, don't look at her. Just close your eyes, sweetheart, please, just close your eyes. Her sobbing breaths filled the line. And then, for the first time, I heard something else. A laugh. It wasn't a laugh like you or I would know. It was hollow, crooked, too wide, too sharp, like it scraped its way through the phone instead of traveling through it. Emily whimpered. She's right in front of me. I shut my eyes tight, pressing my palm to my forehead. Emily, whatever you do, don't let go of the phone. Stay with me. But the line shifted. The laugh drew closer, and then the breathing, so heavy, so close. It felt like it was inside my ear. I held my breath, waiting, listening. Then all at once, the call cut, dead air. I sat there, headset pressed to my ear, waiting for something, anything to return. But there was nothing. The units arrived minutes later. They searched the house at the address I'd sent. But when they got there, it wasn't right. The house number didn't exist. The street was real, but the number wasn't. It jumped from 212 to 216. No 214. No house. No Emily. I checked the logs, the call traces, the audio. Every detail. It was all there, except it wasn't. Like the system itself didn't know how to hold on to her. There was no record of a child named Emily in the area. No missing person reports. No family at that address. Nothing. But I know what I heard. I know what she said. And sometimes, when the building is silent, when the static fills the room just right, I still hear it, the low breathing, and her tiny whisper. She's right in front of me. That was the last time Emily called. But even now, I wonder if the line ever really went dead. Or if I just stopped answering. I thought I'd heard it all in this job. Screams, car crashes, break-ins, even the silence of people who couldn't bring themselves to say a word. I thought nothing could surprise me anymore. But the truth is, sometimes the calls don't belong to the present. Sometimes they come from somewhere else, like the past isn't finished speaking. It was late, maybe 2 in the morning when the line lit up. A normal night. No real action. Just the hum of machines and the quiet scratching of my pen on reports. Then the headset clicked, sharp in my ear. "One, what's your emergency?" The voice on the other end came through in a violent rush. "He's killing me!" It was a man. Young, maybe 30s. His words hit like gunshots, raw with panic. "Sir, slow down. Tell me what's happening." "Where are you?" He broke in. "He's in my house! He's stabbing me!" The sound of chaos filled the background. Crashing furniture, a muffled scream, the wet sound of struggle. My blood ran cold. I slammed the address into the system as he shouted it, sending units immediately. "Stay on the line with me," I said, gripping the desk so hard my nails dug in. "Officers are on the way." "Where are you in the house?" The man gasped, his voice breaking. "In the kitchen. Oh God, he's cutting me open." His scream tore through my headset, jagged and desperate. I flinched, stomach twisting. "Sir, hold on, just keep talking to me." "Help is coming!" The noises on the other end were horrible. Metal clattering, skin hitting tile, choking breaths. I tried to focus on the address flashing across the screen. It was on Maplewood Drive, and then silence. The line went flat. I called out, but the man was gone. Dead air pressed against my ears until my own breathing felt too loud. A few minutes later, the officers radioed in. I braced myself for the worst, but what they said didn't make sense. The house at that address was empty, vacant for years. No lights on, no furniture, no signs of anyone living there. I double-checked the address I'd typed. It matched exactly. The sergeant on duty told me the place was sealed up, abandoned after a homicide years back. He said it like I should have known. I didn't answer. I just sat there with the deadline buzzing in my ear. I told myself maybe it was a prank. People do call with fake emergencies, but that scream, that raw animal scream, it wasn't fake. I've heard real terror before. I know what it sounds like when a man is dying. I tried to shake it off. Logged the call, filed the report, told myself it would disappear into the system like so many others. But the sound stayed with me. The crashing in the background, the choked begging, the sharp, wet noises. It stayed with me because I knew, deep down, I hadn't just heard a man die, I'd heard him die again. 2 nights later, the same thing happened. Same house, same voice, same words, "He's killing me." It came out just as sharp, just as broken as before. Like a recording that didn't know it was a recording. I felt my hands go numb. "Sir, I need you to tell me your name," I said, though I already knew the answer. But the man didn't say his name. He just kept screaming, the exact same panic bleeding through the line. Every crash, every sob, every choke. I recognized it. I'd already heard it all before. My chest tightened as he gave the address, the same Maplewood house. This time, I didn't even type it in. I just listened, my throat dry as the screams carried on. And right on cue, the noises ended the same way, sudden silence, dead air. I sat there, headset heavy on my head, staring at the blank wall in front of me. It wasn't just an echo. It wasn't just a prank. It was something looping back, clawing its way into the present. After my shift, I looked it up. The Maplewood house. The reports were still online, yellowed scans of old newspapers. A man named Thomas Gray had been murdered in his kitchen there 15 years ago, stabbed by a burglar who was never caught. The case was cold, and every detail I read was the same as what I'd heard. The struggle in the kitchen, the broken glass, the way he'd cried out before it went. Quiet. I realized then what was happening. Wasn't taking a new call. I was listening to the past repeat itself. Every word I'd heard was the same final moment that man had lived. And for some reason, it was bleeding into my line like the world wanted me to hear it. The thought chilled me, because if a man's last breaths could echo 15 years later, what else could? I tried to tell myself it wouldn't happen again, that whatever it was had run its course. But a part of me knew better. And when I put my headset down that night, the faintest sound still lingered in the static. The broken, rasping voice of a man I couldn't save. "He's killing me." When you work this job long enough, you start noticing patterns. The time of night when most calls come in. The kind of silence that usually means a hang-up. Even the voices. Panic has a certain pitch. Grief has a certain drag. and lies have their own rhythm too. But one night, I noticed a different kind of pattern. One that didn't belong. It started with a call just after midnight. "One, what's your emergency?" I asked, rubbing my temple, ready for the usual car crash or domestic dispute. The voice that came through was frantic. A man, young, gasping for breath. "He's in my house! He's stabbing me!" The words spilled out messy and wild. There was noise behind him, crashes, a struggle like furniture breaking. His scream cut through the headset so sharp it made me jolt. I typed the address as he spat it out, 212 Maplewood Drive, and sent units flying before I even finished confirming it. But the call ended fast. Too fast. One last scream and then silence. The officers arrived minutes later. But the house was empty, boarded up. No lights, no furniture, no one inside. They cleared it top to bottom and found nothing. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe some kids had rigged a soundboard. But the voice, it hadn't sounded like a joke. I've heard dying men before, and that was real. I thought it would end there, but 3 nights later, it happened again. Different shift, same dead hour of night. The line lit up, I answered, and the voice came rushing in. "He's in my house! He's stabbing me!" The same man, the same panic, the same crashing in the background. I froze. The words were identical. Not similar, identical. Every syllable matched. I typed the address again, 212 Maplewood Drive, my hands shaking. And just like before, the call ended in silence. The units checked. Same result. A sealed house, no one inside. I should have filed it away as a glitch, but I couldn't, because I knew what I'd heard. The desperation, the choke in his throat, it was the same, word for word. Like it wasn't a new call at all. Like it was the same moment replaying. The third time broke me. It was a week later, almost the exact same time. I heard the click, I gave my greeting, and the voice came barreling through again. "He's in my house! He's stabbing me!" My stomach turned. I listened, pen frozen in my hand, as the scene unfolded just like before. The glass shattering, the heavy thuds, the shriek that made my spine crawl. It was all in the same order, the same timing, like a tape. I didn't even call it in that night. I just sat there, headset pressed against my skull, and listened until the silence came. When it did, I pulled up the records. I searched the address. Coe's Maplewood Drive, and there it was, buried in old reports. 15 years ago, a man named Thomas Gray was murdered there, stabbed in his kitchen by an intruder. The case was never solved. The words I'd heard, "He's in my house! He's stabbing me!" They weren't just random. They were his last words, recorded in the incident report from a neighbor who heard him scream before calling 911. My skin crawled as I read it. Because I hadn't just been taking a call, I'd been listening to a death echo, and it didn't stop. Every few nights, without fail, the call would come. Always around the same time, always the same voice, always the same house. I started dreading the silence between calls. I'd sit at my desk, headset heavy, waiting for that line to click alive again. And when it did, the words spilled out like clockwork. "He's in my house! He's stabbing me!" At first, I thought maybe it was me losing my mind, hearing what I expected to hear. But I checked the logs. Each call was real. Each time it came from the same number, blocked, untraceable. Dispatch text told me the calls weren't supposed to exist. They left no signal trail, no origin point. It was like the line was answering itself. The more I listened, the more I began to notice little things. Details I hadn't caught before. The scrape of a chair against tile. The sound of a knife falling. A low grunt right before the scream cut out. It was all too clear, too raw. I wasn't supposed to be hearing this. After the 5th or 6th time, I stopped telling anyone. My report started sounding thinner, shorter. I knew the other operators wouldn't believe me. They'd just think I was cracking under the pressure, but I couldn't escape it. Every time the phone lit up, I braced myself. And sure enough, the same address, the same dying words. The world doesn't replay itself. People don't die twice. But there I was, chained to the line, forced to listen to a man's last breaths bleed through the static again and again. And every time it ended, I found myself waiting, dreading the silence, dreading the next call, because part of me knew it was building to something worse. And I was right. The last time I heard it, the man's voice broke the pattern. It started the same, frantic screaming. But after the crash, after the gasp, he said something new. Someone's listening. That was the first time he ever spoke directly to me. And it was the first time I truly believed that whatever was happening at 212 Maplewood Drive wasn't just an echo, it was reaching out. The thing about patterns is they don't last forever, even the strange ones. They shift, they change. And when they do, you know something worse is coming. The calls from 212 Maplewood had been repeating for weeks. Same words, same screams, same frantic plea for help. I thought maybe that was it. A loop I'd be cursed to hear until it faded away on its own. But then came the night it broke. It was close to 3 a.m. I was the only one awake at the desk, coffee gone cold in front of me. My body felt heavy, drained. The silence in the room was thick enough that I could hear the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights above. Then the line lit up. My gut twisted before I even touched the headset. I already knew. I forced myself to answer anyway. 911, what's your emergency? The voice rushed in, sharp and desperate. He's in my house! He's stabbing me! My hand clenched around the mic. The same words, the same tone, but I didn't hang on this time. I listened closer. Every crash, every scream, every gasp, it was all too clear, too detailed. Like the line wasn't just carrying a voice anymore, like it was carrying the whole room. I could hear glass breaking, a chair scraping against the floor, the thud of a body hitting tile, and then the man's voice again, ragged and raw. He's cutting me open. Oh, God. It stopped with a shriek that made me grit my teeth. And then came the silence. I waited, headset heavy on my ears. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it. That's when I noticed something strange. The words weren't just familiar. They weren't just a memory. They matched. Exactly. I pulled up the old report on my screen. The homicide file from 15 years ago. The neighbor's testimony. The 911 transcript from the night Thomas Gray was murdered. And line for line, the call I was hearing matched the transcript. Word for word, even the timing was the same. The pauses, the gasps, the choking cries. I read along as I listened, my stomach sinking. I already knew what would come next. Please, somebody help me. And then the cutoff scream. Right on cue. It was like the call wasn't live at all. It was a performance, a replay. The past dragging itself into my ear. I knew it wasn't possible, but I couldn't deny it. I was listening to a man's last moments exactly as they had been recorded 15 years earlier. And if that was true, the line should have gone dead right then, but it didn't. For the first time, there was something after. The silence stretched, long and unnatural, then a faint click and a breath. Not the dying man, not the struggle. Something else. Low, heavy, damp. It didn't belong to the transcript. It belonged to whoever had killed him. I froze, the sound pressing into my ear like it was too close, like it was inside the line with me. And then a voice spoke, not frantic, not panicked, calm, smooth. You shouldn't be listening. My breath caught. It wasn't part of the report. Those words had never been written down. This was new. The silence on the line stretched again, dragging on until I couldn't tell if I was breathing anymore. Then the voice spoke once more. Stop answering. And just like that, the line cut dead air. I ripped the headset off, my chest heaving. My hands shook against the desk. I pulled the logs, desperate to trace the call to prove to myself it was real. But there was nothing. No number, no record. No sign the line had ever gone live, just like every time before. But I know what I heard. The first calls might have been echoes of a murder long past. But the last one was different. It wasn't just the past repeating, it was the killer. And he knew I was there. For days, I couldn't shake the weight of those words. You shouldn't be listening. I stopped sleeping at night. Not because I was afraid of silence, but because I was afraid of the line coming alive again. Afraid of what I might hear next. I told myself it was done, that it had ended the way the transcript ended. But I couldn't ignore the warning. Stop answering. I wonder now if I ever had a choice. Because sometimes, when the line is quiet, when the static builds just right in my headset, I hear it. The faint rasp of breathing. Not desperate, not dying, patient waiting. And I know one night the call will come again. And this time, it won't be an echo. It will be for me. Most nights, the calls blur together. Car wrecks, drunken fights, welfare checks that go nowhere. After a while, you don't remember voices. You just remember tones. Panic, grief, confusion. They blend into one long sound, but some calls. They cut through the noise. They stick with you in ways you don't want them to. The first one came just after midnight. A weak signal, full of static, like the caller was far out or using a dying battery. 911, what's your emergency? There was shuffling, heavy breathing, and then a man's voice, strained but whispering. We're out by the North Trail. The woods. Do you hear that? I frowned, glancing at the dead monitor in front of me like it could help. Sir, can you describe what's happening? What do you hear? The phone shifted. I could tell he was holding it away from himself. And then I heard it too. Not clear, not sharp, but faint under the hiss of bad reception, something like a scream. It wasn't steady. It rose and fell, jagged, broken, like someone screaming until their voice tore apart. At first, I thought maybe it was another camper, someone injured or calling for help. But the sound didn't carry words, no names. No help me, it was raw. Animal. The man's voice snapped back on the line. We've been hearing it for an hour. Keeps getting closer. We don't see anyone. My stomach tightened. Are you in danger? Do you feel threatened? A pause. Then, in a low, trembling tone, it doesn't sound human. The static cracked, and for a second I thought the call dropped. But then I heard his wife in the background. A thin, sharp voice. We need to go now. The line broke off right after that. I logged the report, sent it out to patrol, protocol, but as I typed, the sound I'd heard replayed in my head, stretching out. Distant but undeniable. The first report. The next came 2 nights later. This time, it was a group of college kids calling from a campsite off the same trail. Their voices overlapped, nervous and joking, like they were half playing it off, but not really. Yeah, we're hearing, screaming, I think. Might be coyotes, maybe. But then one of them leaned closer to the phone and whispered, It's not coyotes. Man, it sounds like a woman being murdered out there. They started arguing among themselves, voices bouncing back and forth. It's probably an animal. No way. I heard words. We should leave. And then the phone picked it up. The scream. Louder this time. Cutting across the chatter, it started high and shrill, almost human, and then dipped low into a guttural moan that prickled my skin. The kids went silent on the other end. For a moment, all of us were listening. The line crackled. One of them whispered, It's right outside the tree line. Then chaos, shouts, someone dropping the phone, the thud of feet on dirt. The call cut before I could say anything. Again, I sent it out. Again, patrol checked the area. And again, they found nothing. No bodies, no footprints. Just the woods, quiet as ever. By then, I should have let it go. Weird calls happen. People hear things. Animals sound stranger at night than most folks realize. But it wasn't just the callers anymore. It was me. That second night, when my shift ended and I drove home, I rolled the window down to shake off the drowsiness, and there it was. Not loud, not clear, but far off, like it was hiding under the hum of the tires, a scream trailing across the wind. I told myself it was in my head, a trick of exhaustion, an echo of the call stuck in my mind. But then came the third report. This one wasn't campers. It was a ranger. His voice was tight, professional, but edged with something else. Something I didn't usually hear from people trained to stay calm. I'm by the Creek Bend North Trail. I've been hearing vocalizations. For the last 30 minutes. Describe them, I said, even though I already knew. He hesitated. Screaming, repeated. It doesn't... Stop. It doesn't sound like distress. It sounds... He trailed off. Like what? I asked. The line went quiet except for his breath. Then he said, like it's enjoying it. I didn't answer right away. My throat was dry. On the other end, I heard leaves crunching, his boots moving quick. Then he cursed under his breath, It's close! Too close. The scream tore through the line right then. No static this time. No distance. It was sharp, jagged, rising and falling until it broke into laughter. Not human laughter. something higher, stretched too far, but unmistakably gleed. And then the call dropped. I stared at the dead line, listening to my own breath. The other dispatchers were busy. No one else seemed to notice. Just me. I waited for patrol's update, but it was the same. Nothing found. Nothing there, and yet, that night, lying in bed, I woke to the sound outside my window. A scream. Not in my head. Not in the distance. Right there, sliding through the trees at the edge of my street. I sat frozen in the dark, every muscle tight, listening to it rise and fall like it had when the campers called me, when the kids whispered about it, when the ranger's voice cracked on the line. Only this time, it wasn't just their problem. It had followed me home. The morning after the ranger's call, I expected someone to walk into the room with answers, maybe even laugh it off. A prank, a recording, a weird animal, something I could file away and forget. But no one said anything. The ranger filed his report, same as me. Investigated. Nothing located. Patrol units wrote the same thing. No footprints, no blood, no evidence. Just the same empty woods. But the calls didn't stop. If anything, they multiplied. By the end of that week, I'd taken 4 more. Always from the same stretch of forest. Different voices, different stories, but always the same sound bleeding through the line. Those screams. One came from a woman driving the back road that skirts the tree line. She was alone, late, headlights cutting across the trees. She told me she saw movement just off the shoulder. Pale shapes between the trunks. Then she heard it. She described it like a woman shrieking, but stretched out, rising higher and higher until it didn't sound like a person anymore. She said it shook her windows. Her voice cracked as she told me she locked the doors, floored the gas, and didn't look back. Another call was from an older man who lived in a cabin near the South Trail. He said he'd been woken by the sound outside his porch. When he stepped out, shotgun in hand, he swore he saw a figure standing just inside the tree line. When I asked him to describe it, he went quiet. Then he said, it wasn't moving right. It was like its shoulders were backwards. The line went dead before I could ask anything else, and then came the teenagers. They called laughing, voices shaky from adrenaline. They'd gone out there on purpose, chasing the rumors. Said they wanted to hear the screaming woods for themselves. I could hear the buzz of a speakerphone. Voices talking over each other, taunting the dark. Then one of them hushed the others. The scream came through. Clear as day, it wasn't far off this time. It was close, so close it rattled their microphone. The laughter cut off. Someone swore under their breath. Another said, "Shut up! Shut up! Listen!" And for a moment, the only sound was the steady, ragged wail threading through the air. Then the call ended, just like the rest. Every report ended the same way. Deputies drove out, flashlights in hand, searching the undergrowth, and every time, they found nothing. They radioed back, calm, professional, tired. Negative contact. No signs, no screams, no figures. Not even disturbed brush. Nothing in the trees. I should have been relieved. That's what I told myself. If the woods were empty, then there was no threat. People were just spooking themselves. But I couldn't shake it because I kept hearing it too. Not just on the calls anymore. Not faint, not imagined. I'd be driving home late, windows up, radio off, and the sound would thread through the night like it was following me. One time I was parked at a red light, engine idling. The city was quiet, empty, and still. Underneath it all, I heard that faint, broken wail. It crawled under my skin, into the part of me that knew something was wrong but couldn't explain why. I didn't tell anyone. I knew how it would sound. A dispatcher haunted by phantom calls. I'd be laughed out of the room. Or worse, pulled off the desk. So I stayed quiet. But the longer I kept it to myself, the heavier it became. The calls stacked up in my log, neat little lines of text. Caller reports screaming in woods. Caller reports figure near tree line. Patrol dispatched. Negative contact, every entry the same. A pattern written in silence. Until one night, I slipped. It was near the end of my shift. I was tired, head pounding from hours of static and voices. Another report came in. 2 hikers, lost near the ridge, swearing they could hear someone crying for help. I sent it out, same as always. Deputies responded. They came back 30 minutes later. Their voices on the radio were steady, routine. Area clear. No signs, and I couldn't hold it in anymore. I pressed my mic and said, "You didn't hear it?" There was a pause. Then the deputy came back, calm but firm. Negative. I wanted to push, to ask how that was possible. But I bit down on it. My finger hovered over the mic. My pulse hammered. I let go without saying another word. When the channel cleared, I just sat there staring at the console, listening to the low hum of the room. That was when I realized something. The callers weren't lying. They weren't imagining things. They were hearing exactly what I was hearing. And for some reason, the deputies weren't. The next night, another report came through. A family this time, camping with their 2 kids. The father's voice shook as he tried to keep it steady. "There's something out there. It keeps circling. We hear it screaming, moving through the brush, but there's nothing when I shine the light." His kids were crying in the background. The wife kept whispering, "Just pack it up. We need to go." I told him to stay on the line until patrol arrived, but by the time the deputies pulled up, the family was gone. Their tent was still standing, the fire still burning low, their cooler and bags left behind, but no people, not even footprints leaving the site. The deputies shrugged it off as panic, said the family must have taken off in a rush, maybe hiked back to the road. But the father's last words on the line stayed with me. "It's closer now. It's right outside the tent. God help us, it's smiling." That night when I got home, I sat in the dark for a long time. I didn't turn on the TV, didn't try to sleep. I just sat by the window listening. At first there was nothing, just the hum of the fridge, the faint buzz of a street light. But slowly, like it was waiting for me to notice, I heard it again. Not faint this time. Not distant, clear, long, breaking, apart into something that almost sounded like laughter. It was coming from the line of trees behind my building, the same woods, the same screams, and no matter how many times the deputy said otherwise, I knew one thing with certainty. There was something out there, and it wasn't stopping. I used to think the headset was the thing that trapped the screams, that maybe it was the console, the wires, the radio towers, some technical fluke carrying echoes where they didn't belong, but then it followed me home. It was my first night off after a long stretch of shifts. I should have been grateful for the silence, for the chance to sit in my own chair in my own living room, with no blinking lights or endless voices pouring through a headset. But the quiet wasn't peace. It was pressure. I could feel it against my ears, like the space between sounds was too tight, like the silence itself was waiting. I tried to distract myself, put on the TV, let the voices of strangers fill the room. But I wasn't listening. I kept glancing toward the window. The blinds were closed, but I could feel the dark pressing against them, heavy, patient. That was when I heard it. Faint at first, like it was carried from far away. A long, broken wail. Not the cry of a person, not an animal either. Something stretched between the two. I froze, remote in hand. The TV was still playing, but I couldn't hear a word of it anymore. Only that sound. I told myself it was a trick. Maybe a neighbor's TV, or some animal passing through. But the longer it went on, the less it sounded like anything that belonged in this world. It rose and fell in waves, cracking at the top like a voice tearing itself apart. And beneath it, there was something worse. A rhythm, almost like laughter. I muted the TV. The scream didn't fade. It grew sharper, closer. I sat there, stiff, the remote digging into my palm. My throat was dry, but I couldn't move. The sound was coming from outside my building, the same scream that had poured through the phone lines night after night, was now clawing its way through my walls. I don't know how long I sat like that. Minutes, maybe more. My chest hurt from holding my breath. When I finally moved, it wasn't out of courage. It was out of instinct. I went to the window, slow, like something was pulling me forward. I parted the blinds just enough to see through. The street was empty. The parking lot below was still. No cars moving, no people walking. Just the quiet dark of a neighborhood settling in for the night. But the scream didn't stop. It was louder now, rolling through the air like a storm no one else could hear. I scanned the tree line behind the lot, those same woods, black trunks crowded together, shadows shifting between them. I thought I saw movement there, pale, small, like a face peering between branches. But when I blinked, it was gone. The scream cut off as sudden as it had started. The silence that followed was worse. I stepped back from the window, heart slamming against my ribs. I wanted to tell myself I'd imagined it, that stress and exhaustion were finally pushing me too far. But deep down, I knew better, because I'd heard it too many times before. It was real, and it knew where I lived. I didn't sleep that night. I sat with every light on, waiting for it to return. But the hours dragged by, and nothing came. When the sun finally rose, I felt like I'd survived something. Like the daylight itself was proof I was still here. But the relief didn't last, because the calls kept coming. Back at the center, the reports piled higher. Campers, hikers, late-night drivers, all swearing they heard the same screams. Some described seeing figures in the trees too tall, too pale. Others swore the voices were calling their names, and every time the deputies found nothing, they started joking about it. The famous Screaming Woods, they'd say, should start charging tourists, but no one laughed for long. Not when another family abandoned their campsite. Not when a truck was found empty on the roadside, door hanging open, engine still running, and not when I told them what I'd heard outside my own home. I shouldn't have said it. I knew better. But one night, after another fruitless call-out, I let it slip over the radio. My voice cracked when I said, "It's not just the woods. I heard it too, outside my place." Silence followed. Then a deputy came back, careful, controlled. "Copy that, no laughter. No disbelief, just silence." The next morning, one of them stopped by my desk. A man who'd worked the job longer than me, eyes lined with exhaustion. He leaned in close, voice low. "You hear it, you don't talk about it. Understand?" There was no threat in his tone, just warning, like he knew something I didn't. After that, I stopped trying to convince anyone. But the screams didn't stop convincing me. I heard them in my car, parked outside the grocery store. I heard them on walks, cutting through the quiet of suburban streets, always faint, just at the edge of hearing, until one night, they weren't faint anymore. I woke up to the sound of glass rattling in the frame. My heart seized before I even opened my eyes. The scream was outside my window. It didn't sound distant this time. It sounded like it was right there, pressed against the glass. I forced myself to sit up, to look. The blinds shifted against the pane, trembling from the vibration of the sound, and for just a second, I saw it. A figure too tall, too thin. Its head tilted at an impossible angle, mouth stretched wide in a scream that didn't stop even as its face pressed against the glass. I stumbled back, crashing into the nightstand. The lamp fell, shattering, and then it was gone. The blinds swayed, the window pane went still. The scream cut out mid-breath, leaving the air dead and heavy. I stood there in the silence, shaking, staring at nothing. Didn't sleep again. I didn't even close my eyes, because I knew the truth now. The woods weren't just screaming anymore. They'd followed me home, and they weren't going to leave me alone. I don't remember when I decided to go. Maybe it wasn't a decision at all. Maybe the forest had been calling me from the start, and I'd just been stalling. By the time I finally stepped outside, the screams weren't just something I heard. They were something I felt. Like pressure under my skin, like a pulse that wasn't mine. That night, I didn't even bother with excuses. Didn't tell myself I was going to prove anything, or that I was just curious. I just knew I couldn't stay inside anymore. The sound was already there, drifting through the window screens, vibrating in the air like heat. Long, ragged wails rising and breaking into something that sounded almost like laughter. The streets were empty. No one else stirred. No one else heard. It was just me and the forest. I didn't bring a flashlight. Didn't grab a weapon. My hands were empty as I crossed the parking lot and stepped into the dark. The line of trees loomed like a wall, black against black, shifting in the faint wind. Every instinct told me to stop, to turn back. But my feet kept moving, like the sound itself had reached down and hooked me. The moment I stepped beneath the branches, the air changed. It was colder, heavier, almost wet. The earth smelled sharp and metallic, like blood left too long in the open, and the screams, they didn't echo anymore. They wrapped around me, close, tight. I couldn't tell if they were far away or right over my shoulder. I walked deeper, branches clawing at my arms, leaves crunching underfoot. The further I went, the less the world behind me seemed to exist. The road, the lights, the life I knew, it all fell away. It was just the trees and the sound. I should have been terrified. But there was something else beneath the fear. A strange pull, a recognition. Like some part of me had always known this place was waiting. The screams shifted as I moved, rising and falling in strange patterns, sometimes sharp like someone being torn open, sometimes soft like a voice whispering through teeth. I swear I could hear my name in it. I don't know how long I walked. Time didn't move right in there. Minutes could have been hours. Hours could have been seconds. But eventually the trees thinned, opening into a clearing. The moonlight fell across the ground, pale and cold. And for the first time I saw them, figures, dozens of them, standing among the trees just at the edge of the clearing. They were tall, too tall. Their arms hung too long at their sides, fingers brushing the ground. Their heads lolled forward, mouths wide. The screams weren't coming from around me anymore. They were coming from them. Every figure had its mouth stretched open, but not one of them moved. Their chests didn't rise. Their bodies didn't shift. It was like the sound was pouring through them, not from them. I couldn't breathe. My knees wanted to give out, but I couldn't collapse. I was rooted there, staring, and then slowly one of the figures stepped forward. Its head snapped upright, neck bending in sharp, unnatural jerks. Its face caught the light, and I saw pale skin pulled too tight, lips split and torn from the endless screaming. Its eyes were wide, too wide, and they locked on mine. The scream cut off. The silence hit harder than the sound. One by one, the others went silent too. The forest was dead quiet, and all at once, I realized they were listening, waiting for me. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Only air, shaky and dry. But in that silence, even breath was enough. It was like the forest had answered back. The figure tilted its head. Its mouth twitched. And then, without moving its lips, I heard my own voice, repeating the same words I'd spoken weeks ago into the headset. "Wevin, what's your emergency?" My blood turned to ice. The voice wasn't distorted. It wasn't warped. It was me. Perfect. Exact. Another figure shifted, and I heard a different call. A woman's voice this time. The one who swore she saw pale shapes in the trees. The next figure gave the man with the backward shoulders. Another gave the family's last words by the tent. All of them, pouring the calls back at me, word for word, every scream I'd logged. Every voice I'd heard, all of them lived here now. My stomach turned. My vision swam. But I couldn't move. The first figure stepped closer, and I heard my own voice again, clear as if I'd just spoken it. It's not just the woods. I heard it too, outside my place. The clearing spun. They weren't just repeating the calls. They were repeating me, every slip, every whisper, every secret I thought I'd kept. The screams built again, low at first, rising in a steady swell. The air vibrated with it, pressing into my chest, crushing my breath. I dropped to my knees, palms digging into the dirt. The sound was too much, too close, tearing through me like it was inside my head. And then I screamed back. I don't know why. Maybe it was to drown them out. Maybe it was to join them. But the moment the sound tore out of me, the clearing went silent again. All of them turned, heads snapping toward me at once, mouths stretched wider, smiles. And in that awful silence, I understood. I wasn't just hearing the forest was hearing me, and now it wanted me to stay. That was the last thing I remember clearly. The rest is fragments. Hands too cold dragging across my skin, mouths stretching wider than they should. My own voice screaming back at me from a dozen directions. Then nothing. No sound. No light. Just the woods, answering me. We weren't supposed to answer line 17. It was an old line, long before my time. I'd heard about it during training, whispered like a warning but never listed in the manual. The instructors just said it was disconnected years ago. Don't worry about it, they told us. If it rings, just ignore it. That was the rule. Simple enough. But if you sit at a desk long enough staring at blinking lights, listening to people beg for help, you start noticing patterns. You start noticing things other people have learned to block out. And line 17, it never stayed quiet. Every few weeks, its little square button would glow red. No tone, no name, just a flashing light. And every time, the room got colder. The other operators kept their heads down, pretending not to see it. Pretending not to hear, I did the same, until the night I didn't. It was past midnight, the slow stretch of a shift where minutes feel like hours. Most of the floor was empty. Just a couple of us left waiting out the clock. I was sipping cold coffee when Lean 17 lit up. That soft red blink, slow, patient. I don't know what made me reach for it. Maybe boredom, maybe curiosity, maybe something else entirely. My hand moved before my brain caught up. I pressed the button. The line clicked, and then I heard it. A voice. Faint. Cracked, like it was pushing through water. I never made it home. That's all it said. 5 words. I froze. Headset pressed tight, heart hammering in my chest. "Hello?" I whispered. "This is 911. What's your emergency?" No answer. Just static like distant wind, and then the line went dead. Silence. I sat there staring at the board, at that little red light now dark again. The rule was clear. Don't answer. But I had. And the worst part? I wanted to hear it again. I didn't sleep that morning. I lay in bed replaying the voice over and over in my head. I never made it home. It didn't sound like a prank. Didn't sound like bad reception. It sounded real. Too real. The kind of voice that comes from a place you don't fake. By the time my next shift rolled around, I'd convinced myself it was nothing. A glitch. Maybe even my imagination. But when I sat back at the console, the unease was still there. Every time I looked at line 17, I expected it to glow again, and a little after 2 a.m. it did. The same slow, patient blink. My hand hovered over the button. I shouldn't, but I did. The click, the faint hiss of static, and then a different voice. Lower, male, breathless, like someone speaking with broken ribs. "I'm still out here." My mouth went dry. "Sir, can you tell me your location?" Nothing. The static stretched. Then the line cut out. Another call ended before it began, but the words lingered. "I'm still out here." I started asking questions after that. Quietly, careful not to sound too curious. Most of the older operators shrugged it off, said line 17 was a relic from when the system was first built. "It's nothing," they said. "Some old wires that never got pulled. But when I pressed, some of them got stiff." Their eyes shifted. Their voices dropped lower. One of them finally told me the truth, or part of it. Line 17 wasn't just disconnected. It was supposed to be dead, decommissioned after a fire at one of the old call centers. An entire block burned down in the 90s. Several operators never made it out. 17 of them. 17. The story made my skin crawl. It sounded like an urban legend, the kind of thing you tell rookies to spook them. But something in the way he said it. It didn't feel like a joke. He looked tired, worn, like he'd lived with the sound of that line for too long. I stopped asking questions after that, but I didn't stop listening. The third time I answered, the voice was clearer. It was a woman, her tone soft, shaky, like she'd been crying. "Please, can you tell him I'm sorry?" My throat tightened. "Ma'am, who should I tell? What's your name?" But the line clicked dead again. Always the same. One message, then silence. I wrote it down in my notebook that night. Not just the words, but the time, the date, the details. I don't know why. Maybe to prove it happened. maybe to convince myself I wasn't losing it. But as the weeks went on, the notebook filled, page after page of voices, some short. I can't feel my legs. The smoke. It's everywhere. It's so cold. Some longer, slipping through static like broken memories. I was driving home, but the road just kept going. I couldn't find the exit. I thought I saw lights ahead. But when I reached them, there was nothing. The voices never repeated, but they all carried the same. Weight. Heavy. Final. Like each one was the last thing they ever said. And maybe that's exactly what it was. It's hard to explain what it does to you. Hearing voices like that, when people call 911, they're desperate. They're scared. They cling to you like a lifeline. And sometimes you can save them. Sometimes they make it through, but line 17, those weren't calls for help. They were echoes, fragments, like the words had been burned into the air, and I was the only one still picking them up. Every time I hung up, I felt a little less steady, like the voices weren't staying on the line, like they were following me home. I'd wake at night certain I heard my phone buzzing. When I checked, the screen was black. I'd swear I heard voices in the hum of the refrigerator, the rattle of pipes, the hiss of static on the TV. Always the same kind of voices, thin, cracked, final. And more than once, I thought I heard my own name. The last time that month I picked up, the voice was different. It wasn't panicked, wasn't broken, it was calm, steady. A man's voice, deep and slow, like he'd been waiting a long time. You shouldn't have answered. Those 4 words landed harder than all the others. I didn't respond. Couldn't. I just sat there frozen, headset pressed to my ear. The silence growing heavier by the second. Then the line cut out, and for the first time, I didn't just feel uneasy, I felt watched. Like whoever or whatever was on that line knew me now, knew I was listening, and wasn't going to let me stop. I thought I could control it. I told myself I'd only answered line 17 a handful of times, that I was still in charge, that I could stop whenever I wanted. But the truth is, I was waiting for it. Every shift, every night, my eyes drifted to that dead little square, that red light that wasn't supposed to glow at all. I'd catch myself staring, heartbeat ticking faster, waiting for the blink. And when it finally came, I was already reaching. The first time that week, the voice came through broken but familiar. Not familiar like I recognized the sound. Familiar like I'd heard the words before. I can't breathe. The water's too high. It jolted me, not just the desperation in the voice, but the phrase itself. Because I'd heard it. Not long ago, months back, a call came in from 2 teenagers trapped in a sinking car. The girl had said those exact words right before the line cut. I can't breathe. The water's too high. And now here it was again, not live. Not happening now, just an echo, a memory with a pulse. I slammed the button, cut the line off. My palms were damp, my chest tight. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? But the name started coming next, and that was worse. A few nights later, the line blinked again, slow, patient. I braced myself before pressing it. The voice was male, low and ragged like it was dragging itself across gravel. Dispatch? This is Officer Keller. I need backup. Corner of 9th and Ash. My blood ran cold, because Officer Keller was dead. He'd died almost 2 years ago, responding to a domestic call that turned into a bloodbath. Every operator on the floor remembered it. The radio chatter, the panic, the silence at the end, and here he was, his voice back on the line, word for word, the same call from that night. I yanked the headset off and just sat there shaking, watching the light blink until it went dark on its own. I didn't sleep for 2 days. Once you notice a pattern, you can't unsee it. The calls weren't random. They were from people who never made it home, people I'd logged, reported, sometimes even spoken to myself. A man trapped in a burning warehouse, screaming for his brother. A mother whispering her children's names as smoke filled her lungs. A teenage boy begging me to tell his dad he loved him. Right before the gunshots came, they all came back, not in full, not like they were living it all over again, just fragments, echoes, and sometimes worse than anything, my own voice answering them, captured in the background. Cold dread sank into me. It wasn't just ghosts. It was the system itself. Remembering, like the wires, the circuits, the walls of the call center had soaked up every cry, every plea, every final word, and line 17 was bleeding it back out. I tried to talk to one of the supervisors. Not about ghosts, just about the line itself. "Hey," I said, casual, "what's the deal with 17? Why don't they pull it out for good?" She gave me a look I didn't like. Flat. Guarded. "It's not connected to anything. Don't worry about it." Her tone made my stomach twist. Not connected, but it was. Connected to something. Something she didn't want to say. I started writing everything down, not just the words this time, the names, the dates, the exact phrasing. My notebook filled with ghosts, and every time I thought I'd seen the worst of it, the line blinked again. One night, it was a kid's voice, high-pitched, trembling. "Please tell my mom I want to come home." I knew that one too, a boy taken in a flood 2 towns over. His mother had called after the fact, begging us to confirm what she already knew. The voice replayed, cracked and thin before fading into static. I sat there, tears burning behind my eyes, headset heavy in my hands. It wasn't fair. They weren't supposed to still be out there, circling the wires, trapped in the dark, but they were, and I was the one hearing them. The names got closer after that, people I'd spoken to myself. One night around 3 a.m., line 17 blinked. I pressed it. The voice that came through nearly stopped my heart. "Help me, please. He's coming back." I knew that voice because I'd been on the line with her when it happened. A woman calling from her apartment, whispering in the dark, her husband pounding at the door. I tried to keep her calm. Told her officers were on their way, but they weren't fast enough. The husband broke in, and the screams that filled my headset that night still lived in my nightmares. Now they lived online. 17 replayed in a voice. I couldn't save. I ripped the headset off, chest heaving, bile rising in my throat. But I could still hear her, muffled, faint, like the words were slipping out of the plastic of the console itself. "Help me, please." I nearly quit that night, but I didn't. And I don't know if that was strength or weakness. It wasn't just old calls anymore. It was me. I was in them, answering, responding. My own words twisted back at me through static, sometimes out of order, sometimes wrong, like they'd been misremembered. One night, a voice whispered, "Stay on the line with me." And it was, my own voice saying it. But I never said it like that. Not with that edge, not with that finality. It felt like listening to a stranger wearing my skin. I slammed the button and shoved the headset away. Shaking so hard I nearly fell out of the chair. I started dreaming of the console, dreaming of the light blinking red, slow and patient. Dreaming of voices stacked on top of each other, all talking at once, too many to understand. And when I woke, sometimes the phone by my bed was glowing faintly, though the screen was black. I stopped telling myself it was coincidence, stopped telling myself it was just wires, just signals. It wasn't. It was something older, something that lived in the silence between the clicks, something that knew my name now. Because the last time I answered that week, the voice didn't just replay an old call. It said my name, clear, sharp, like someone standing right behind me. I whipped around, headset sliding off my ear, heart clawing its way up my throat. But the room was empty, just me and the dark and the dead line, waiting. The night it happened, I almost didn't answer. I'd been avoiding it, the way you avoid looking at something in the corner of your eye. Like if I pretended hard enough it wasn't there. It couldn't touch me. But that red light doesn't care about what you want. It blinked, slow, patient. And before I knew it, my hand was already on the button. The line opened, and the first thing I heard was me. My voice. At first, I thought it was an echo, some kind of feedback. But then the words sank in. "I need help. Please. I think I'm dying." It was my voice, but not like I've ever heard it before. Breathless, weak, like it was being forced out of lungs that had already collapsed. I froze, My own words slid into my ears like knives. No, I don't know where I am. It's dark. I can't see anything. Please, don't let me die like this. I couldn't breathe. My pulse hammered so hard I thought I'd black out. It was me. No question. The same cadence. The same little catch in the throat when fear takes over. But I had never made that call. Not yet. I wanted to hang up. Cut the line. But I couldn't. Because hearing yourself beg for your life, it's like gravity. You can't move. The voice, my voice, kept talking. There's blood. I can't stop it. Please? Please tell them not to forget me. I pressed the headset tight against my skull, as if pushing it deeper could change what I was hearing. Blood. I could almost feel it. Warm, sticky, spreading under me. Like the words were painting the picture in real time. And then it said something that hollowed me out completely. I don't want to die alone. The line crackled. My own sobs, faint and ragged, came through like they were slipping across time. I yanked the headset off and shoved back from the console, the chair rolling across the floor. I was shaking so badly my teeth clicked. I'd heard enough death on the job. I'd heard men choke on their last breaths, women scream until their voices broke, children whisper their final words, but nothing prepared me for my own voice begging for mercy. The next day, I told myself it was a trick of the mind, stress, lack of sleep. But when I looked down at the notes I'd scribbled on autopilot, the words were there, not in my handwriting, not completely, slanted letters. Darker ink, like someone else had taken the pen from me mid-sentence. The page read, "I don't want to die alone." I slammed the notebook shut so hard the desk rattled. That night, I stayed away from the console as long as I could. Every call I answered on the regular lines felt like a lifeline to reality. Noise, distraction. But the quiet hours always come. And when they did, I felt it waiting. Line 17, silent, patient, until it wasn't. The blink, the pulse of red. I couldn't stop myself, answered. And there it was again, my voice. But this time it was different, calmer, resigned. "They're not coming," it said. "They never come for me." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Hello?" I whispered, not even realizing I'd spoken. The voice on the line stopped. Then it laughed. Not loud, not wild, just a soft, broken chuckle, like it knew something I didn't. Like it was amused by me, listening to myself die. Then the tone shifted. "You'll see," it said. Soon enough, static swallowed the rest. The line cut. I sat there, heart hammering, bile in my throat, and for the first time since line 17 started, I thought about unplugging the whole system. But I didn't, because deep down, I wanted to know how it ends, how I end. The calls didn't stop. Every night after, the voice came back. My voice. Sometimes it whispered. Sometimes it screamed. Sometimes it just cried, long and broken, like all hope was gone. And every time I listened, I couldn't stop. I started to notice details. The sound of sirens in the distance. The shuffle of feet on concrete. The gurgle of blood in a throat that wasn't quite empty yet. Pieces of a scene I couldn't place. And then, worse than all of it, I began to smell things while I listened. Iron, smoke. Once, the faint reek of gasoline. My headset pressed against my ear. My stomach knotted, my lungs refusing to pull in air. It was like the line wasn't just carrying sound anymore, it was carrying everything, the death, my death, bleeding out of the wires and into me. I started jumping at my own reflection. In the bathroom mirror, in the dark screen of my phone, in the black shine of the console, every time, for just a split second, I thought I saw myself hurt, pale, bleeding, eyes glassy and wide. Not me as I was, me as I'd heard myself become. And then it would blink away, leaving me staring at my shaking hands. The last call. I think that's when I broke. Line 17 lit up and I answered, because I always answered, and my voice came through again. But this time, It wasn't pleading, it wasn't panicked, it was final. "I'm gone," it said. Just those two words, and then silence. No static, no breathing, just dead air. I sat there, headset to my ear, waiting for something more, but the line stayed empty. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I'd just heard the future, or if it had already happened. I don't sleep anymore. Don't answer the regular lines without trembling, because every call feels like it. Could be the one, the moment the future bends and folds into the now, the moment my voice isn't an echo anymore. It's me, real bleeding, begging someone else not to forget. Me. And I wonder every night when that red light blinks again, if I'll be calling myself, or if I already am. The first time I heard her voice, I thought it was just another water leak call. You'd be surprised how often those come in. People panic when water creeps up through their floorboards or seeps in from broken pipes. But this call, it didn't sound like that. The woman on the line sounded out of breath. Her words came in little bursts, like she was running between rooms or trying to hold something back. "There's water?" she said. "It's filling up so fast. I can't stop it." Her voice cracked at the end like she was on the edge of crying. I sat up straighter in my chair. The headset felt heavier all of a sudden. "Ma'am, stay calm," I told her. "Can you tell me where the water is coming from?" There was a pause, and then she whispered, "The basement. It's flooding." It sounds like dripping at first, but now it's rushing in. I can hear it moving through the walls. That detail froze me. I've heard a lot of fear in my time taking calls, but the way she said it, like she could feel the water crawling toward her, it made my skin tighten. I tapped her address into the system, already dispatching help. "Okay, help is on the way. I need you to stay on the line with me until they arrive." The silence on her end stretched too long. Then came the sound. Drip, drip, drip. Loud enough that the mic caught it clear. It wasn't steady. It wasn't like a faucet left open. It was irregular, almost. Wet and heavy, I swallowed. "Ma'am, are you still there?" "Yes." Her voice was tight, close to the phone, almost like she was hiding. "I can hear it," she whispered. "It's dripping, but it doesn't sound like water anymore. It's thick." I frowned, already glancing around the quiet dispatch room, trying to shake the unease creeping up my neck. "What do you mean by thick?" I asked. There was a long pause. Then she said, barely audible, "It smells like iron." My chest tightened. Blood. She was smelling blood. I tried to keep my voice steady, professional. "Okay, listen to me. Stay upstairs. Do not go down there. Keep away from the basement door." But her breathing picked up, fast and uneven. I already tried to check. I thought I could stop it. But I dropped the flashlight. It rolled into the water. "I saw something down there." Her words tumbled out like she was trying to get them out before they got stuck inside her throat. I pressed my pen so hard against the notepad it almost tore the paper. "What did you see?" Silence. Only the sound of that awful dripping. Then a low creak. Like a door swinging on old hinges came through her line. I heard her whisper to herself. Not to me. "It's still moving." I leaned forward. Heart pounding. "Ma'am?" "What's moving?" Her voice dropped lower, cracked. "The water isn't still. It's pulling toward the center. Like it's breathing." I felt the words hit me in the stomach. I'd dealt with panic. I'd dealt with hallucinations, shock, hysteria. But the way she said that, like it wasn't just water rising, but something alive inside it, set off every instinct I had. I wanted to scream at her to run. Instead, I kept my voice level. "Listen to me carefully. Go outside. Get out of the house right now. The responders are almost there." There was a long pause, and then she said, "I can't." My grip on the pen slipped. "Why not?" "Because..." She hesitated, then choked on the words. "I can hear someone down there." Her breathing rattled in the line. "Someone's in the basement." Every hair on my arm stood straight up. At first, I thought it had to be a squatter, maybe someone trapped by the rising water. That would explain the sounds, the panic. But then, faint under her breathing, I heard it too, a low thud. Then another. Wet, dragging movements. like something shifting itself slowly through liquid. The pen dropped from my hand. My throat was so dry it hurt to speak. "What do you see?" I asked, my voice cracking. The line filled with silence. Then her voice, so small I almost missed it. "It knows I called you." I sat frozen in my chair, headset trembling against my ear, and then, in the background, I heard it, not dripping, not rushing water, a sound like something exhaling, deep and slow, filling the whole room on her end of the line. And then the call cut off. Dead silence. No static, no tone, just gone. I sat there with the dead line in my ear, staring at the screen like I could will her voice back, but nothing came. When the responders got there, they reported back that the house was silent. No flooding, no sign of water damage at all. The basement was bone dry, empty. But when they opened the basement door, every single one of them swore they heard it too. Drip, 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 even though there was nothing there. And the woman? She was never found. Not in the house, not outside, not anywhere. Like she'd vanished between the ringing of the phone and the sound of that last dripping breath. I can still hear her sometimes, late at night, when the building is quiet and I've got nothing but the hum of the monitors to keep me company, a soft dripping, somewhere just out of reach. At first, I told myself it was a leaky pipe, or my imagination filling in the silence. But it's not. Because when I hear it, my throat always tightens, and deep down, I know that sound isn't water. It never was. When you work this job long enough, you start cataloging the calls that stick with you. Not the routine ones, the car crashes, the bar fights, the domestic disputes. Those blur together. It's the ones that carry silence between the words that get lodged in your brain. The ones where you can hear something breathing behind the caller even if you can't name it. Her call was like that. The woman with the flooded basement. Even after the responders searched the house and came up empty, I couldn't stop thinking about her voice. The way she whispered that someone was down there, it should have ended there. But it didn't, because 2 nights later, she called again. I was halfway through my shift, sipping cold coffee and staring at the glowing monitor when Lean 7 lit up. I answered the way I always do. Calm, practiced, mechanical. "Levin, what's your emergency?" The voice on the other end was faint, almost lost under static. It's still dripping. My grip tightened on the headset. It was her. The same woman. Her voice sounded thinner, stretched like it was being pulled through water. I swallowed hard. "Ma'am, is this the same house? Are you safe?" There was a long pause, and then I heard it. Drip, drip. Not through her phone this time, through the headset itself. It was so loud it felt like the sound was bleeding into my skull. Then, faintly, voices. Not one, not 2, dozens, muffled, distant, coming up from beneath her words. At first I thought it was interference. Crossed lines, a bad connection. But then the voices grew clearer. They weren't speaking at once. They were begging. "Help me. Don't leave me here. It's so dark. Come down." All layered, rising and falling, as if they were treading water just beneath her. I pressed my palm against my chest, trying to steady my breathing. "Ma'am," my voice cracked. "Do you hear them too?" Her answer came out broken. "Yes, they want me to come down." Her voice trembled. "I hear them calling my name. My blood turned to ice. Stay where you are," I said quickly. "Do not go near that basement." But her whisper carried something heavy. "I think they're people who drowned." The line hissed, then went quiet. I sat there with my pulse hammering, listening to the emptiness. And then, just before the call cut, one of the voices spoke, louder than the rest, and it wasn't begging. It was commanding. "Answer." Us, then silence, dead air. I didn't tell anyone about that second call. The responders had already made me feel like I'd lost my grip the first time. No sign of flooding, they said. House was clear, but I knew what I heard. You don't mistake begging voices for static. You don't mistake a woman's terror for imagination. And when I went home that night, I couldn't sleep, because in the silence of my apartment, I swore I could hear it too, dripping somewhere beneath the floorboards. The third call came a week later. Different shift, different night, but the same voice. I recognized her the second she spoke. "It's deeper now," she said. "The water's higher. I can hear them moving under it." Her tone was strange, half terror, half awe. I forced myself to stay calm. "Where are you calling from? The same house?" "Yes," she whispered. Then I heard something behind her, not dripping this time. A low rush, like something thick pushing itself along a wall, and under that, those voices again. But they'd changed. They weren't begging anymore. They were chanting, low, steady, in unison. I couldn't make out the words, but the rhythm made my stomach turn, like they were calling her deeper. I pinched the bridge of my nose, trying to think. This wasn't normal. This wasn't just a flood. I knew if I told the deputies again, they'd roll their eyes, mark it down as hysteria. But she sounded so real, like she was trapped between the floorboards of her own house. "Listen to me," I said firmly. "Do not go down there. Do not listen to those voices. They are not real." But she didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her words chilled me to the bone. They knew my husband's name. Her whisper shook. They knew how he died. My mouth went dry. "How did he die?" I asked. Before I could stop myself, she breathed out the words like confession. "He drowned. In that basement. Years ago, the pipes burst. The whole place filled before I could get him out." My hand froze on the notepad, and in that moment, I realized something. Maybe the water never left. Maybe she was living on top of it all this time, and maybe, just maybe, her husband wasn't alone down there. "Ma'am," I whispered, "leave the house. Right now. Please." But her voice dropped lower, strange and far away. "They're calling me again. Louder now." The sound swelled through the headset. Dozens of voices overlapping, pulling her words apart. "Come down! Come down! Come down!" I slammed the dispatch button, calling for deputies, shouting the address. My voice cracked as I demanded they hurry. When I got back on the line, I heard her footsteps, wood creaking, moving closer to the basement door. "Don't!" I begged. "Please don't open it." But the line filled with the sound of hinges groaning, the door opening. Then, a rush, like water surging upward, swallowing the receiver whole. The line cut. When the deputies arrived, they swore the house was empty again. No sign of her. No flooding, but they reported something strange this time. When they opened the basement door, the air was wet, heavy. The wood was damp to the touch, and one of them swore just before closing it. He heard faint voices below, not begging, not chanting, just whispering the same word over and over, like they knew someone was listening. "Answer, answer, answer." That was the night I realized this wasn't just her haunting, it was spreading. Because when I got home, I turned the faucet on in my bathroom sink, and instead of the normal trickle of water, I heard voices rushing up through the pipes, and I swear, they said my name. There are certain moments in this job where you know, deep down, that nothing you say will make a difference. You can stay calm, use the right tone, follow the protocol word for word, but the call is already lost. That's how it felt the night she called again, the woman with the flooded basement. By then, I'd started dreading the sound of her voice. My stomach would twist every time an unfamiliar number flashed on my screen, afraid it might be her, and yet, when she finally did call back, a part of me almost felt relief because it meant she was still alive, at least for the moment. The line crackled to life just after midnight. "What's your emergency?" I said automatically, but my chest was already tight. Her voice came out strangled, gasping. "It's back," she whispered. "The water. It's rising faster this time." There was chaos in the background. Sloshing, the scrape of something dragging against concrete, and beneath it all, faint whispers, the same voices I'd heard before, only now, they weren't distant. They were rushing through the receiver, sharp and urgent, like they knew I was listening. I pressed my fingers against my temple, forcing myself to focus. Ma'am, listen to me. Get out of the house! Don't go near the basement. Just leave. Right now. But she wasn't listening. Her breaths were ragged, uneven. They're louder now, she said. They're not just calling anymore. They're moving. Her words dissolved into sobs. And then, through the static, I heard it. Something splashing. Something heavy. Rising up from water that shouldn't even exist. Ma'am, where are you right now? I asked, my voice shaking. I'm in the kitchen, she said. The water's at the door. It's pushing against it, her voice cracked. It's not just water anymore. My skin prickled. What do you mean? She hesitated, then whispered words I'll never forget. It has hands. The line filled with crashing, wood splintering, water rushing and then piercing through it. Her scream. Not the startled scream of someone surprised. The raw, guttural scream of someone being dragged under. I ripped off my headset, but I could still hear it. The sound burrowed deep, clawing its way past the static and the distance, and then silence. The line went dead. My hands were trembling as I dispatched units to her address again. I begged them to hurry, to break down the door if they had to. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the radio crackled. The deputies had arrived. The house was empty. No water. No damage. No sign of her. I stared at the monitor, at the address that had been repeated so many times, feeling sick. They didn't believe me. They didn't believe her. To them, it was just another phantom call, but I could still hear her scream. Even with the line cut, even with the silence pressing in around me, I swore the sound of rushing water lingered in the static of my headset. That night, I couldn't go home. I sat in my car outside the station, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, replaying her final words in my head. It has hands. I tried to reason with myself. Hallucination. Shock. She was hysterical. But then I remembered the voices, the way they seemed to grow clearer with each call, and the way they had spoken directly, not just to her, but to me. Answer us. When I finally did make it back to my apartment, it was almost dawn. I shut myself in the bathroom, turned on the sink, and listened. For a moment, it was just water. And then, something shifted. The stream thickened, gurgling, choking, like the pipes weren't just carrying water anymore. I leaned closer, heart pounding, and in the hiss of the faucet, I heard it, a whisper, low, breathless. Help me! I slammed the faucet off and stumbled back, my chest heaving, but even with the water cut, the dripping didn't stop. I could still hear it, faint, steady. Somewhere beneath the floor, drip, 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 each drop carrying that same unbearable weight, as if it was waiting, as if it knew the line wasn't finished yet. The next shift, I found myself staring at the console, half hoping, half dreading that the number would appear again. It didn't. The silence stretched on, thicker than any scream. But even now, when I close my eyes, I can hear her voice breaking apart on the other end of the line. Not just a caller, not just another emergency, something else, something older, something waiting beneath the surface, biding its time. And when I remember the way her scream cut off, when I remember that last terrible rush of water swallowing her words, I can't help but wonder. Was she dragged down into it, or did she finally answer them? Because lately when I wake up in the middle of the night, I can hear dripping in my apartment again. And sometimes, if I listen closely enough, I swear I can hear hands moving just beneath the sound. There's something cruel about silence after chaos. When the line went dead on her screams, I thought at least the responders would find something. Broken furniture, a soaked carpet, anything to prove that what I heard was real. Instead, they radioed back the way they always did. Flat voices, detached, house is secure. Nothing unusual. Nothing unusual. I wanted to tear the headset off, to shout that they were wrong, that they weren't looking hard enough. But all I could do was sit there, gripping the edge of the desk until my nails bit into the wood. I begged them to check the basement. I couldn't stop myself. The word please came out of my mouth like I was the one drowning. Finally, one deputy gave in. I heard their boots echo as they went down the stairs. A pause, and then the words that made my stomach drop. Basement's dry. No water, no damage. Nothing here. I should have been relieved. That's what I told myself. A dry basement meant she hadn't drowned. It meant maybe she got out. Maybe she was safe somewhere. But I knew better. Because when the deputy spoke, I didn't just hear his voice. In the background of the radio, just faint enough to question if it was really there, I heard it. Dripping, steady, rhythmic, drip, drip, drip. Nobody else seemed to notice. They left the house empty. No trace of her. No water stains on the walls. No warped wood. Not even a puddle where the flood should have been. It was as if her screams had been swallowed whole, erased from the space she lived in. But not from me. I couldn't shake it. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her standing in that kitchen. Her voice cracking as she begged me to believe her, and I had believed her. That was the problem. The next day, I drove by her house on my own time. I told myself I just wanted closure. I didn't tell anyone else I was going. The place looked ordinary. Too ordinary. The curtains were still drawn. The grass was a little overgrown. No sign of flooding. No sign of struggle. But when I walked past the driveway, I thought I heard something through the foundation. A faint hum. Like water moving underground. It was enough to stop me in my tracks, enough to make me want to go closer, but I didn't. Because when I leaned toward the basement windows, all I saw was darkness. Not the kind of darkness you expect when lights are off. A thicker kind. The kind that feels like it's looking back. I left before I could lose my nerve completely. Back at the station, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Her last words. The way the line cut off like something had pulled her under. I pulled her file up again and again, as if staring at her address might make something new appear. But the logs were blank. No proof she'd ever called. No recording of her voice. Only silence. It made me feel like I was losing my mind. Like maybe I'd invented her to keep myself awake through the long shifts. But then, late one night, I made the mistake of listening closer. I put my headset on, even when the line was quiet, just to see if there was anything beneath the static. And there it was. The drip. Not constant, but steady enough to be real. And then, the faintest ripple, like something moving through water just out of sight. I pulled the headset off. But the sound followed me. I heard it in the sinks, in the pipes, in the rain gutters outside. Everywhere I went, it was waiting. The hardest part was trying to explain it to myself. Was I cursed because I answered her call? Or had the call been waiting for me all along? That night in my apartment, I woke to a sound that didn't belong. Not dripping, not running water, whispering. I sat up in bed, every hair on my arm standing on end. The voices were faint, muffled, rising from somewhere below. For one terrifying moment, I thought it was coming from under my floor, but when I pressed my ear to the wall, I realized it was in the pipes, in the water itself. My throat went dry. I didn't dare turn on the faucet to prove it. I didn't want to hear what might come through. At the next shift, I tried to tell myself I was imagining it, sleep deprivation, stress. But when I sat down at the console, I noticed something waiting. Her number. Not active. Not ringing, just there, sitting in the log like it had been called hours ago. Even though the system swore no such call existed, I stared at it until my chest ached. The digits burned into me like something etched in, stone. And when I finally looked away, I realized my headset was wet. Just faintly, like it had been dipped in water. The responders had sworn the basement was empty, dry, normal. But that's not what I heard. Heard the drip, I heard the whisper, and I heard her scream. They can insist all they want that the house was empty, that nothing happened, but I know better because sometimes emptiness is worse than evidence. Emptiness means something was erased, covered up, taken away, and if it could happen to her, then maybe one night when I answer the wrong call, it'll happen to me too. Even now, when I close my eyes, I imagine that basement. The dry floor, the clean walls, the nothingness that filled it. But if I listen close enough, I can still hear it. Not silence, not emptiness. A slow, patient sound. Waiting for someone else to answer, drip, drip, drip. The first call came in just after midnight. The voice on the other end was shaking, desperate. There's a siren going off. It's so loud. Why isn't anyone doing anything? I sat up straighter in my chair, blinking at the quiet room around me. The station was calm, empty, except for the steady hum of the consoles. No alarms were active. Where exactly are you hearing it? I asked. Everywhere, she whispered. It's echoing through the whole street. I checked the system. Nothing. No weather alerts. No tornado drills. No civil defense tests scheduled, but she wasn't lying. I could hear it faintly in the background of the call. A long, low wail that rose and fell like the old Cold War sirens you only ever hear in movies. It made my chest tighten. I told her we'd send someone to check. She begged me not to hang up. I didn't. I stayed on the line until she finally whispered. It stopped. Then the line went dead. I thought it was just a fluke. A malfunctioning air raid system, maybe, but 5 minutes later, another call came in. Different street. Different voice. Same complaint. The siren, he panted, like he'd been running. It won't stop. It's rattling my windows, I checked again. Still nothing in the system. And then another call and another. In less than an hour. The phones were jammed with terrified voices, all saying the same thing. The siren. Always at night, always everywhere at once. I kept asking the same question. Where is it coming from? And they all gave the same answer. I don't know. It's just here. I tried to push it aside, tried to tell myself maybe a private alarm had gone off and echoed strangely through the hills. Maybe a prank. But then I stepped outside for my break, and I heard it too. It started faint, like a distant wind pushing through trees. Then it swelled, curling through the dark streets. A sound so massive it felt like it pressed against my chest. It wasn't just noise. It felt alive. I stood frozen on the station steps, staring up at the empty sky. No speakers, no flashing lights, nothing. But the sound rolled through me, rising and falling in waves, as if the whole town was being warned of something coming. And then, as suddenly as it started, it cut off. Not a fade. Not a slow silence. One moment it was there. The next, it wasn't. Back inside, the calls hadn't stopped. People begged us for answers. Parents said their kids woke up screaming. One man swore the siren shook the nails out of his wall, but the official report stayed the same. No alarms active. I wanted to scream at the screen. How could they not see what was happening? But the truth was worse, because I knew they did see, and they were ignoring it. Over the next week, the pattern held, always after midnight, always sudden, like the sound dropped from the sky and always gone by dawn. The strangest part was how no one could record it. People tried, phones, cameras, even professional equipment, but every clip came out silent. Just wind. Even when I tried myself, holding my phone up as the sound rattled my teeth, the playback was blank. No evidence. No proof. Just fear. And the growing certainty that the siren wasn't a warning at all. It was a call. The dispatcher beside me laughed it off. He said it was just mass hysteria. People feeding each other's paranoia. But one night, when it started again, I saw him go pale. He pressed his hands over his ears and whispered, "It's too close." The sound was pouring through the walls, vibrating the glass, and I could have sworn just for a moment I heard something beneath it, a faint rhythm, like voices, screaming. The calls got worse. People claimed they saw shadows moving when the sirens blared. Whole crowds standing at the ends of their streets, unmoving, watching. Others said the siren followed them, that no matter where they drove, it was always just behind them, swelling louder the faster they went. One old woman said she saw her dead husband standing at the foot of her bed while the sound shook the walls. She kept repeating the same words to me, over and over like a prayer. "It means we're already gone. It means we're already gone." I hung up shaking, because part of me believed her. I started dreading my shifts. The hours between midnight and dawn felt stretched thin, stretched wrong, as if time itself was bending to make room for the sound. I stopped sleeping properly. Every night, even when I was home, I swore I could hear it under my dreams. Faint and steady, and worse. I started to feel like I was waiting for it, as if some part of me already knew it was coming. And all I had to do was answer. One night, the phones all lit up at once. Dozens of calls, voices screaming over each other, some begging for help, some sobbing so hard they couldn't breathe, and behind all of it, clear as day, the siren. It had never been that loud before. It was so strong I thought my headset would crack apart. And in the middle of all the noise, a little boy's voice came through. "It's outside my window," he whispered. I froze. "What's outside your window?" "The siren," he said, voice small, trembling. Not the sound, the siren. And then the line went dead. That was the night I realized something none of us wanted to admit. The sirens weren't warning us about danger. They were the danger, and every time they came, more people disappeared from the call logs, vanished without a trace, like they'd been claimed by the sound itself. I still hear them sometimes. Even now, I'll be driving home at night, the streets empty, the sky clear, and then the air will shift, heavy, electric, and there it will be again, the phantom wail, stretching through the dark, looking for someone to answer. And deep inside, where I don't say it out loud, I know the truth. It isn't just haunting the town. It's haunting me, waiting for the night I stop running from it, waiting for the night I finally step outside when the siren calls my name. It happened on a Tuesday night, the night the whole town ran. I was on shift, sitting in the glow of the monitors, trying to ignore the growing tension in my chest. The calls about the phantom sirens had slowed, but the silence felt worse, like everyone was holding their breath, waiting. Then the phone lines lit up. All of them, not just one or two callers, not a handful, dozens, hundreds. Voices shouted over each other, panicked, desperate. They said, "Evacuate." They said we have to leave now. "They're telling us to get out." I pressed the receiver so hard to my ear it hurt. "Who told you?" "The sirens." The line crackled with the sound of the wailing in the background. That long, hollow scream that bent the night into something wrong. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just noise, it was speaking. I couldn't make out the words. Not fully, but the rhythm was there, buried inside the rise and fall. A pulse, a command, and everyone heard the same thing. Evacuate now. Within an hour, the streets were chaos. Families packed cars. Headlights cut through the dark as rows of vehicles snaked toward the highway. I watched it from the dispatch window, a river of red taillights streaming out of town. The siren followed them, howling above the engines, driving them faster, harder. But there had been no order, no emergency, no broadcast from us, just the sound. I tried to call it in, tried to demand someone, anyone, acknowledge what was happening. But the higher lines were dead, not busy, not jammed, dead. It was like the whole system had been cut off, leaving me stranded in the center of something too big to fight. And still, outside, the town was emptying, street by street, house by house, as if every living thing was being pulled toward the highway, swallowed by the night. By 3 a.m., silence had settled over the streets. The cars were gone. The houses stood dark and hollow, curtains swaying in open windows like abandoned sails. I stepped outside, listening, no siren. For the first time in weeks, there was nothing but the soft buzz of the street lamps. The town was empty, and it was just me. I stayed on shift until morning, waiting for someone to return for another call for anything, but the phone stayed silent. When the sun finally rose, I drove through the neighborhoods myself. Not a single car left behind, not a single person. The grocery store lot was barren. The gas station pumps were dry. Even the dogs, the cats, the birds, gone. The whole town had obeyed. And yet, there had been no evacuation, no disaster, no reason. The official report later said it was mass hysteria, a strange coincidence of panic fueled by rumors, by fear. But I knew better. I had heard the voice inside the siren. I had felt it push into my bones like an order. And the worst part was this. Everyone else had too. Everyone but me. Days passed. The phones never rang. The station grew thick with dust. I sat in the dark, staring at the maps pinned to the walls, every street marked like veins of a body that no longer lived. I kept waiting for someone to come back. A car, a voice, a knock at the door. But the town stayed empty, and the siren never returned. Not once. It was like it had finished what it came to do, like it had taken what it wanted and left me behind. Sometimes at night, I'd dream of it, the wail rising, curling into words I couldn't quite understand. I'd see the headlights stretching down the highway, miles of them, disappearing into the dark, and in those dreams, I wasn't inside the station anymore. I was out there too, driving, leaving, going wherever the siren wanted me to go. One morning, I walked through town again just to prove to myself it was real. The silence was unbearable. Doors swung open on their hinges. A child's toy lay in the middle of the street, sun-bleached and broken. Inside one house, a meal was still laid out on the table. Plates half full, cups tipped over as if they'd been lifted away mid-bite. I couldn't stay long. Every step felt like trespassing in a graveyard, because that's what the town had become. A graveyard with no bodies. I started to wonder why I'd been spared. Why hadn't I heard the words the way they had? Why hadn't I left too? The answer scared me more than anything. Maybe I hadn't been spared at all. Maybe I'd been rejected. Maybe the siren hadn't wanted me, and now I was stuck here, the only one left, to wait for whatever came next. I think about that night constantly. The night of the evacuation that never was. A whole town fled because of a voice no one should have heard. And in the silence afterward, the siren vanished. But silence isn't safety. Silence is waiting. I know it'll come again. Not here. This place is finished. But somewhere else. Another town. Another night. Another voice on another phone line, whispering that they can hear it too. And maybe next time I won't be left behind. Maybe next time I'll hear the words clearly. And when I do, I'll follow, just like the rest of them, because deep down, I think we were never running from the siren at all. We were running to it, and one day, it's going to finish calling us home. The first time the line rang, it didn't feel strange. Not at first. We get silent calls all the time. People panic. They freeze. Sometimes kids dial without knowing. Sometimes it's just a pocket call. But this one was different. When I answered, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt alive. I said my greeting. Waited. No answer, but the line stayed open, and then I heard it. Breathing, not loud, not frantic, just faint, slow, like someone was sitting very close to the receiver, listening. I remember holding my breath without meaning to, pressing the headset tighter against my ear. There it was again, in, out, steady, patient, like whoever it was. Had all the time in the world. I tried the standard procedure. Asked if they needed police, fire, or medical. Asked if they could say yes or no. Asked if they could press a key. Nothing. Just breathing. I logged the call, gave the address trace request, and waited. But nothing came back. No location, no number. Just the line itself. As if it wasn't coming from anywhere at all. After a few minutes, the breathing grew lighter. As if the caller was moving away, and then, click, the line went dead. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the monitor. There was no record, no trace, no evidence the call had ever happened. If I hadn't heard it myself, I would have thought I imagined it. The next night it happened again. The phone rang. And when I picked up, silence. Then the breathing. This time I didn't say anything at first. I just listened. In, out, soft, rhythmic. Too steady to be panic. Too close to be accidental. I waited, hoping they'd say something. But they never did. When the call ended, I stared at the blank screen again. Nothing logged, nothing saved. It was like the line hadn't been touched, but my ears still rang with the sound. On the third night, I tried a different approach. When the call came through and the breathing started, I whispered into the receiver, "I can hear you." The breathing stopped. For a moment, the silence was complete, and then, so soft I almost thought I was imagining it, a shift, like someone moving, not speaking, just adjusting their weight, as if they were closer than I realized, as if they were in the room with me. I froze, turning my head to glance at the empty corners of the call center. The desks stood quiet. The lights buzzed overhead, but the sound in my ear was undeniable. Someone was there, listening, breathing, with me. I reported it, of course. My supervisor brushed it off, said it was prank callers, said not to worry, but I couldn't let it go, because prank calls leave numbers. They leave records. This one left nothing. And the sound. It wasn't playful. It wasn't teasing. It was patient, like whoever it was could wait forever. By the fourth night, I was dreading the ring, and when it came, my heart sank. The breathing was heavier now, louder, not labored, just close, too close. Like they'd leaned into the receiver, like their mouth was almost touching it. I felt my throat tighten as I whispered again, "What do you want?" Silence, just the hum of the line, and then inhale, exhale. Longer this time, like they were answering me, like the breathing itself was the message. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed with my own breathing in my ears, trying to convince myself it wasn't the same, that what I'd heard was just static. But I knew better. It wasn't static. It was someone who knew how to find me, even when the system couldn't find them. By the end of the week, it was routine, the ring, the silence, the breathing, always around the same time, always the same pattern. No words, no location, just a presence. Each time the breathing grew heavier, like whoever it was getting closer. Not just to the phone, closer to me. I started glancing over my shoulder during calls, started checking the empty corners of the room, started convincing myself I'd see someone standing there, headset on, listening to me in return, but there was never anyone, just the sound in my ear. Inhale, exhale, never ending. The worst part wasn't the sound itself. It was the waiting, the knowledge that it would come again, that somewhere in the night, when the room was quietest and the monitors glowed just right, the phone would ring, and the only thing on the other end would be someone breathing, not asking for help, not trying to talk, just existing, inside my ear, inside my head. And each night, it sounded less like a stranger and more like something familiar, something I should have recognized, something already inside the room. That was the beginning. The first silent call, the first breath, the first time I realized the line wasn't just connecting me to people out there, it was connecting me to something else, something that knew my name before I ever spoke it, something that wasn't far away at all. And I knew, deep down, that this was only the start, because breathing means life. And what I heard on that line, it wasn't trying to live, it was trying to remind me it already did, closer than I thought, closer than I could handle, closer than I could ever escape, and sooner or later, it was going to stop waiting. The calls didn't stop. They only got worse. At first, it was once a night like clockwork. That strange ring, the pause, and then the steady breathing on the other end. But then it started coming twice, 3 times, 4, until the sound of the phone buzzing against the desk made my stomach knot in dread. And every time I picked it up, it wasn't silence anymore. It was heavier, closer, the kind of breathing you don't just hear, you feel, the kind that makes the hair on your arms rise. Because it doesn't sound like it's coming from across town, or across the street, or even across the line. It sounds like it's coming from right behind you. By the second week, I couldn't convince myself it was a prank anymore. Pranks get sloppy. They laugh, they slip up, they stop when it's no longer fun. This didn't. It was patient, steady. Every night it got a little louder, a little clearer. until I could almost picture it. Someone standing in the shadows, headset pressed close, just breathing into the line, like they weren't calling me from somewhere else, like they were here. I told myself not to turn around. That's what it wanted, but every time, I did. I'd glance at the corners of the room, the dark gaps between the cubicles, the faint reflections in the glass. No one. But I swear, some nights I felt warmth at the back of my neck, the kind of heat you only feel when someone's close enough to lean over your shoulder. I'd whip around, heart racing. Nothing, just empty space. But the breathing never stopped in my ear. It changed me, made me paranoid. During my shift, I'd look at my coworkers across the floor and wonder, was it one of them? The guy in the back who never spoke much, the woman who typed too quietly, the temp who always stayed later than needed. Could it be them slipping a call through? But then I'd think back to the records, to the empty logs, to the way the calls had no trace, no number, no origin, and I knew it wasn't them. It wasn't anyone in this building I could see. It was something else. The worst night was when the call came while another operator was mid-conversation. I picked up, thinking maybe this time it would break the pattern, but it didn't. It was the same. The inhale, the exhale, only now I could hear something faint under it. A shuffle, like movement, like footsteps on tile, and they were in sync with the room around me. Every time I shifted in my chair, I thought I heard them shift too, like they were copying me, mimicking my smallest move, not just watching, mirroring, as if they were practicing, trying to get closer to being me. I couldn't tell anyone. How do you explain that? That a caller is breathing into your headset and somehow you know they're inside the building with you? No one would believe it. Hell, I didn't even believe it. But I felt it. I knew it. Deep down, I knew that if I turned around at the wrong moment, I'd see them, standing just a few feet away, headset dangling, breathing in my ear. I started staying later than usual. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't go home like this. I'd linger at my desk, waiting for the others to leave, listening to the faint hum of the empty room. It made me feel safer, in a way. Like if I could sit in the quiet long enough, I'd catch it. Catch the sound outside the phone. Catch it for real. But nothing ever came. Just that steady, impossible breathing, always in my ear, never in the air. The more it happened, the more I started noticing other things, tiny things. The way the lights sometimes flickered, just as the line connected, the faint static, crawling through the wires even before the phone rang, the shadows, stretching too far across the floor, as if they were reaching toward my desk. And sometimes, I swear the sound wasn't in the receiver at all. It was in the room, not loud, not obvious, but there, a faint whisper of breath. So close I could almost feel it on my skin. One night, I tested it. I muted my headset. The breathing continued, loud, clear. But when I pulled the earpiece away from my head, it didn't fade. I could still hear it, like it wasn't coming from the phone anymore, like it was coming from me, from the space around me, from inside the call, center itself. I remember staring at the headset in my hand, my heart thundering in my chest, because if the sound wasn't in the receiver, where was it? The calls came faster after that, every hour, sometimes every few minutes, always the same rhythm, always closer than before. I stopped answering other lines. I couldn't focus. All I heard was breath, even in silence, even when no phone was ringing. In, out, louder, closer, until I started to lose track of which sounds were mine and which weren't. I thought about quitting, walking out. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't matter, because the breathing had followed me once already. That night when I couldn't sleep, lying in my bed with my own breath echoing in my ears, I heard it. Not mine. Theirs. Slow. Heavy. Like someone crouched at the side of the bed. Just close enough to listen. I didn't move. I couldn't. I lay there until dawn, eyes wide open, counting each inhale, each exhale, praying it would stop. It didn't. It just faded like whoever it was had slipped away. Satisfied for now. Back at work, I kept telling myself it was just the headset, just the phone. But I knew. Because every time I looked at the glass door at the far end of the room, I swore I saw it, a shape, just past the reflection, standing still, waiting, always waiting. And when the phone rang again, I didn't even hesitate. I picked it up, and for the first time, I didn't say a word, I just listened. The breathing was louder than ever, so close it wasn't even a sound anymore. It was a presence, filling my ear, filling my chest, like it was inside me, breathing for me. And I realized something. It wasn't calling to scare me. It wasn't calling to play games. It was calling because it was moving closer, step by step, breath by breath, until one night, it wouldn't need the phone at all, because it would already be here, with me. And when that day came, I wasn't sure if I'd hear the breathing anymore, or if I'd just feel it on my skin, at the back of my neck, inside the room, inside me. That was when I understood. The line wasn't a barrier. It was an invitation, and I'd already answered it. Every night I picked up, I let it closer. Every breath I listened to, I gave it a little more space, and now there was no going back. Because it wasn't somewhere far away anymore. It was here, breathing, waiting, closer, and it wasn't going to stop. Not until the line went silent. Not until I did. The night it finally happened, I knew something was different. The call didn't start with a ring this time. It started with silence, a silence so thick it pressed against my chest, making me hold my own breath without realizing it. I sat there at my desk, headset already warm against my ear, waiting for the sound I had come to dread. And when it came, it wasn't faint anymore. It wasn't distorted. It wasn't filtered through wires or signals. It was clean, clear, close, breathing. Not in the headset, not in the phone, but behind me. I froze. It wasn't the first time I'd thought I felt something in the room, but this was different. I didn't just hear it. I felt it. That faint vibration in the air, the shift of warmth brushing against the back of my neck, the sound of lungs pulling in air, just inches away. It was impossible to tell myself it was the line anymore. I knew exactly where it was coming from, right behind me. For the longest time, I didn't move. I just sat there, staring at the glow of the monitor, afraid that if I even blinked, it would lean closer, that it would touch me, that I'd feel fingers settle on my shoulder. I wanted to turn. Every part of me screamed to look, but I couldn't, because deep down, I already knew what I'd see. The breathing grew heavier. Each inhale dragged longer. Each exhale pushed hotter against my skin. I clenched my hands tight against the desk, trying to ground myself, trying not to give it what it wanted, but it knew I knew, and that made it bolder. I heard the faintest shift, like weight moving on the carpet, a step, closer, and the reflection on my monitor flickered, a shadow where there shouldn't be one. I tried to speak, to say who's there or stop this, but my throat locked up. The only sound that came out was a weak rasp, swallowed by the breathing that wasn't mine. I thought about running, standing up, bolting for the glass door across the room, but I couldn't, because to run, I'd have to turn, and I wasn't ready, not yet. Minutes felt like hours. I sat there, locked in place, the glow of the screen painting me pale, and then something changed. The breathing stopped. For the first time in weeks, the line was silent, the room was silent, no air shifting, no warmth on my skin, nothing. But I didn't feel relief. I felt dread, because silence meant it had moved, and I didn't know where. Slowly, I raised my eyes toward the far wall, to the glass panel that looked out into the dark hallway beyond. And that's when I saw it. A shape. Faint, blurry, pressed just behind the glass. Standing perfectly still, it wasn't a reflection, it wasn't a trick of the light, it was there, watching, waiting. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't make out its face, if it even had one. Just the outline of a figure, human, but not too still, too patient. Like it had been standing there the whole time, waiting for me to notice. And when I did, I swear I saw its head tilt, just slightly, like it was acknowledging me, like it was amused. The headset slid from my hand, clattering against the desk. I didn't care if the line was still live. I didn't care if the system recorded it. All I cared about was the glass, that thin pane separating me from whatever was on the other side, and the terrible thought that maybe the glass wasn't separating us at all. Maybe it was keeping me in. I don't know how long I stared at it. Seconds, minutes. The figure didn't move, didn't shift, didn't blink, just stood there, breathing softly, fogging the glass with every exhale. And then it was gone. Not like it walked away, not like it faded. One moment it was there. The next, there was nothing. Just empty hallway, as if it had stepped out of existence. Or worse, stepped in. I couldn't sit there anymore. I stood, finally forcing my body to move, legs trembling beneath me. The air in the room felt wrong, heavy, charged. I couldn't tell if it was behind me again or if it had slipped somewhere else. I just knew it was still here, could feel it. In the walls, in the floor, in the space between each of my breaths. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed until dawn, sitting in the break room with every light on, staring at the door, waiting, listening. Every creak in the building made me flinch. Every hum of the vents made me shiver. But nothing came. The breathing didn't return. The figure didn't show, only silence. Almost like it was giving me time, like it was letting me sit with the truth. That it had never been in the phone. It had been here all along, behind me, behind the glass. And that's the part that still keeps me awake. Not the calls, not the figure, but the thought that maybe it isn't trying to get in at all. Maybe it's already inside. And every time I pick up that phone, every time I listen to that breathing, I'm not letting it closer. I'm letting it know I can feel it, that I'm aware, that I've noticed it standing there. And the more I notice, the more real it becomes. Until one day, I'll turn around, and I won't just hear it, I'll see it. And when I do, there won't be glass between us anymore, there won't be space there. Won't be anything left but the sound of its breath. Right. Here, right now, in the same room as me. I don't know how much longer I can last, because every night, it's harder to convince myself the room is empty. Every night, I hear the breathing clearer. Every night, I see that shadow linger longer behind the glass. And I know, one night soon, when the silence falls, it won't be gone. It'll be right behind me, waiting for me to turn. It was a quiet shift. Too quiet, honestly. The kind of night where you start to get suspicious about the silence. Where you half expect the phone to ring. Not with a real call, but with something strange, something wrong. I sat there sipping stale coffee, staring at the blinking lights of the console. The hum of the machines filled the room, steady and low, like a mechanical heartbeat. That's when the line lit up. Line 3, I answered without thinking. My voice steady, the way it always is. Dispatch. What's your emergency? There was a pause. Just static at first, faint and crackling. Then a voice. A man's voice, familiar in a way that made my chest tighten. This is Deputy Collins, out at mile marker 47. I need backup. I froze. Deputy Collins. I knew that name. Everyone in the county did, because 3 weeks ago we buried him. For a moment, I thought maybe it was stress. My brain playing tricks. Maybe I just misheard, but no. The voice was clear, steady. The exact same calm, clipped tone I remembered from dozens of radio calls. Repeat, I said, my hand trembling over the console. Did you say Deputy Collins? Static hissed. Then his voice again. Yeah. Collins, Unit 12, I'm at mile marker 47. Requesting backup. Immediate. Unit 12. His old unit number, Nobody had used it since the wreck. I sat there, paralyzed, every rational thought in me screaming that this was impossible. But the dispatcher in me, the part trained never to ignore a call, took over. "Copy that," I said, my voice barely steady. "What's your situation?" There was a long pause on the line. When he spoke again, it was quieter. Almost like he'd leaned in close to the mic. "They won't stop moving." I swallowed hard. "Who won't stop moving?" I asked. The line crackled again. And through the static, I thought I heard something else. Not just his voice. Other sounds bleeding through, shuffling, a dragging noise, like feet scraping across gravel, and then a low, wet moan. "Not Collins. Something else." "They're all over the road," he whispered. I can't stop them." I stared at the wall clock. The second hand ticked slow and loud, marking time in a room that suddenly felt too small. "Collins," I said, gripping the mic so tight my knuckles whitened. "Where exactly are you? Are you in your vehicle? Do you need medical assistance?" Nothing, just static. Then, faintly, "You should have answered sooner." My stomach dropped. Because I remembered the night of his accident. The call came in just after midnight. His cruiser had gone off the road, rolled into a ravine. By the time anyone found him, it was too late. But here he was, calling in like nothing had happened, using the same number, the same clipped tone, and blaming me, as if somehow I'd let him down. I pulled off my headset, pressing my palms to my eyes. My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. But when I slid the headset back on, the line was still live, breathing now. Slow, steady, not mine. His. And then, clear as day, "You left me out here." I slammed the disconnect button. The line went dead. Silence filled the room, but the silence didn't feel like relief. It felt heavy, expectant, like it was waiting for me to answer again. I sat there, every instinct in me screaming to log it, to record what happened, to mark the time and details. That's what we're trained to do. But I couldn't. Because to write it down would mean admitting it was real, that I had heard his voice, that the dead could call in, and that somehow they still expected me to send help. I didn't tell anyone. I couldn't. Who would believe me? They'd say it was stress, fatigue. They'd say I imagined it. But I know what I heard. And the worst part is, I think it's not over. Because ever since that night, every time Line 3 lights up, I hesitate. I hear his voice again in my head, asking for backup, begging me not to leave him out there. And I know, sooner or later, I'll have to answer, even if it means talking to the dead.